Okay, good evening. I'll call to order the April 17th, 2023 regular meeting of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners. Our first order of business will be our Pledge of Allegiance, and after that I'm going to ask Pastor Josh Frazier to come forward to give our invocation. If everyone would please stand for the pledge.
Let us pray. God in heaven, we thank you for this day to be alive. Thank you for every person that is in this room under the sound of my voice. I pray that you would bless each of them richly in the way that only you can. We ask today for guidance and wisdom in all that we do. We ask that you would give us the ability to search out and to seek what is the best and the most necessary thing that's going to help our fellow man, to allow us to live in peace and to be able to focus our minds and hearts on the right things of this world. We pray that you would give us all that the blessings that you've given to us and continue to give up to us, and we thank you for those things. We ask that you'd be with us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Josh. Okay, our next order of business will be public hearings, and we have a public hearing tonight for Tropical Storm Fred Action Plan Amendment Number 1, public comment period. We have a Chief Planning Officer for North Carolina of Recovery and Resiliency, Cesar Castro, North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency Community Development Director, Tracy Flores. So if they would come forward. Welcome. If I pronounced your name wrong, Tracy, correct me.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. Hello, everyone. My name is Cesar Castro. I'm the Chief Policy Officer for the Office of Recovery and Resiliency at North Carolina. I'm an urban planner by training, so a lot of what I'm going to present is about planning. I do have a couple of degrees from in urban planning and risk and resilience strategies from Harvard, so I'm really happy to be talking to you all today about this particular action plan. And as you mentioned, I am joined by a few colleagues behind me, Tracy Flores among others. We're going to be helping me fill any questions or anything else that may pertain to the implementation of these funds or any other questions you all may have. So let's get started. Just a quick reminder, we were here back in August presenting the original action plan. But as a matter of introductions, as I mentioned, I'm part of the Office of Recovery and Resiliency. This office was established back in 2018 as part of the NC Department of Public Safety. Our goal and mission is to assist directly or indirectly with communities that have been impacted by storms or presidentially declared storms. To fulfill that mission, we often get asked to think about ways to utilize the allocations that are provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And there are particular requirements we must adhere to, including the publication of action plans and any changes to the action plans as the one being presented to you all today. So just to recap a little bit, back in August, I should say, there was an original allocation of about $8 million that HUD provided for this recovery efforts. So we presented to y'all an action plan related to those funds. We managed to continue presenting what we were going to do with those funds. But back in a few months ago, HUD allocated an additional $5.2 million for the recovery efforts. So we're here today to think through ways that we're going to be able to utilize those additional funds. And as you say that, this is one part of the mission of NCORE. We do other recovery work across the state. And if you want more information on what we do, you can visit our website at rebuild.nc.gov. I'm not going to go over too much about what happened during Tropical Storm Fred. You all lived it. But just to recap a little bit of the timeline, back in 2021, in August, the storm occurred. there was a major disaster declared by Governor Cooper. A few weeks later, President Biden declared a major disaster, DR 4617, which at that point kickstarted the federal response that occurred the following months and up to now with this new allocation of federal funding. So far, in terms of the disaster response, FEMA individual assistance has totaled about $5 million. FEMA public assistance, which is infrastructure related, has added up to about $26 million. There's also FEMA HMGP dollars, which are hazard mitigation dollars, that are about almost $200,000 of that obligated. And there were also state funds that were allocated for this effort, about $44 million, for example, in NCO, OSBM DR, and a part of a total package of about $124 million dedicated to these efforts. We're just a small little part of these efforts, I should add. For example, I know our friends here at OSBM DR have been working tirelessly with homeowners impacted directly by the storm, and they have received about, as of a couple of months ago, I should add, about 120 applications for direct assistance in recovery efforts. So they've been leading that charge. And for those that don't know, FEMA stands for Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it's one of the federal agencies that first comes to assist in the recovery efforts. What I'm presenting today is the allocation for CDBG-DR. It's an alphabet soup, but just to give you an overview of what that means, this is the pot of funding that is provided after FEMA, after the other elements of the recovery effort have been undertaken. And the goal of this pot of funding is to address unmet needs. So these are the needs that are left over from the other efforts. Specifically, the appropriation is meant to address disaster relief, long-term recovery, restoration of infrastructure, housing, economic development, and mitigation. But by design, these funds are set to supplement and really come at the last piece of the puzzle. They're the last pot of funding that come to help communities recover. So the 2023 allocation, frankly, we were a little surprised that we got a little bit more funding. Knowing the data, we understood that there was significant unmet needs in the community, but we were not expecting HUD to provide this additional pot of funding. So back in January 18, 2023, HUD announced these 5.2 additional dollars to go to these efforts to recover from Tropical Storm Fred. This was published in what is called a Federal Register notice, which set the amounts that are allocated for the particular needs in what HUD describes as the most impacted and distressed areas. In this case, it was a particular zip code in Haywood County. However, as a planning effort, we have been able to expand it to encompass all of Haywood County. So this disaster recovery efforts can go beyond the particular zip code that was most impacted. As you may imagine, federal funding comes with some strings attached. So I just want to kind of explain to you all what this means. So in terms of requirements, as an agency, we have 6 years to spend from the grant execution to spend the dollars provided in this allocation. About 15% of the allocation must be spent in some type of mitigation activity, and I'll explain what that means later. Overall, the funds, 70% of the funds must be allocated to benefit low and moderate income persons, as defined by your county income levels, in terms of 80% of the area median income. There's also a public engagement component, what we're doing here today, engaging with community members to hear public comments. And there's also an approval process in which HUD reviews what we provide, and they ultimately provide the approval to proceed with the plan we set in motion. A key component of what we do at NCORE is understanding what the unmet needs are for the community. This means that we take all the data resources available to us, FEMA, the Small Business Administration, and we calculate or approximate about how much is left to truly recover the community. And then this informs how we allocate the different pots of funding for the different programming. So in this case, we reran the numbers, and we saw an increase, for example, of about up to $25 million of housing needs left in the community. This is what it would take, in our estimation, to truly recover Haywood County from a housing perspective. There's also economic needs of about $6 million, mitigation, which is preparing for the next storm, and infrastructure, which relates to your roads, bridges, et cetera, of about $2 million we estimate of unmet needs lingering out there in the community. But the bulk, 66%, is still housing related. I went over this a little bit, but just to explain once again, the methodology to assess the unmet needs is based on what HUD provides us. We use data that's available from FEMA and SBA to truly understand what we calculate is still lingering out there for the community. So that's a little bit of that process. Some key takeaways, as I mentioned, is that we continue to see in our data that owner-occupied housing, rental housing, and infrastructure remain a significant proportion of the unmet needs out there for this particular community. And overall, we saw an increase in those numbers, mostly based on additional data we got from FEMA. 6 months removed from our initial action plan, we were able to glean a little bit more of the data that was coming from FEMA to understand what remained. Sometimes you get dollars that are obligated but not received, et cetera, so that changes your numbers and your calculations. So we were able to see that in the action plan, and if you read the action plan, that will be detailed in there as well. So all that work leads us to what we intend to do with the funding that was allocated, the additional allocation. So much of the plan has stayed the same since we last spoke. The bulk of the funding will go into a fund to rehabilitate the housing stock of Haywood County via a Affordable Housing Development Fund, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So that will be a total of about $10 million, $10.5 million in that particular effort. We have added in this new allocation a component of homeownership assistance, which will be part of a down payment assistance program, and also housing counseling to round out the housing needs that we have seen as we look at the data and we talk to stakeholders here at the county level. So as I mentioned, part of the budget is determined by what the unmet needs are. So there needs to be a direct link. The focus overall, as we've seen in our data, will remain in housing recovery, the big picture of housing in Haywood County. And we will continue to partner with Haywood County. This is a partnership model in which we're working closely with your county administration to make sure that we're leveraging your local resources, but also your knowledge to carry out the work. And the mitigation measures that I mentioned before, those are going to be embedded in the development of this housing. So as we develop new housing developments, there are going to be elements of mitigation, meaning how do we prevent the next flooding event, or how do we prevent the next hazard occurring in that particular site. So those are the elements to keep in mind of the budget. So once again, our updated approach remains the same. Affordable housing and planning activities were part of the original plan, and that continues to be the case in the new allocation. We have added the elements of homeownership assistance and housing counseling after discussing this approach with county stakeholders at the county level to understand what the remaining needs might be and how do we get folks in safe and resilient housing moving forward. I'll talk a little bit about the individual activities so you get a sense of what we are at least attempting to do. So the first program that I presented back in August is the Affordable Housing Development Fund. So this is a flexible program that seeks to create and expand the affordable housing stock. Affordable housing stock also, you may also know it as workforce housing. There are other names to it, but the goal here is to be responsive to the needs of Haywood County in terms of as it recovers, I should say, from the storm, and also allow it to create additional housing stock that will be affordable to low and moderate income households that make 80% or below of the area median income. So that's why it's sometimes referred to as workforce housing because of that particular demographic. These activities may include single-family rentals, family rentals, or even for-sale owner-occupied units. That we can also rehabilitate existing units, do land acquisition, so it's quite a flexible pool of funding to really further the housing goals. That allocation, as I mentioned, is $10.5 million, and that represents 80% of the total allocation that's been provided by HUD. The next activity is a homeownership assistance program. This is a down payment assistance program. The program will prioritize, once again, folks that earn 80% or below the area median income. However, it would also be available to folks earning between 80 to 120% of the area median income. So it's a little bit more encompassing. And the goal here is to help, help potential home buyers with down payment and closing costs and provide the financial assistance they may need to become homeowners. So the allocation for that is $1.1 million, or about 8% of the allocation. The other activity we've added is a housing counseling component. This particular component activity will provide home buyer education to residents participating in the homeowner assistance program. So in other words, if you're getting a down payment assistance from us, you also get some counseling so that you can retain your home and be successful in the home buying and in the home ownership aspect. So that allocation will be $25,000, or about less than 0.2% of the allocation. And that's just because of the economics of housing counseling. You can provide a significant amount of housing counseling for this amount of funding. So it will cover the same number of folks we're trying to reach with our down payment assistance program. Last but not least, the planning, the local and regional planning support. A key component of this is to fund planning activities that would allow for improved resilience and mitigation efforts, and coordination with local and regional entities that will provide sufficient support to really plan ahead and to mitigate potential disasters, or if another storm was to come to the area. Those planning activities are prioritized based on recommendations we hear from our from county partners, and along with other state agencies that are here on the ground that we coordinate with and talk to, that tell us about potential planning activities. You also might have heard of recent work that the Coastal Dynamics Lab of NC State has been thinking about undertaking in Haywood County. So this will be part of the funding of that activity. So all that's to say that these efforts are to plan ahead, and the allocation for that is $875,000, or about 7% of the allocation. So a lot of planning can be done for that amount of money. So those were the programs we have proposed in the action plan. Just to talk a little bit about the timeline itself. I know it seems like these grant processes take a while, and they do. Much of it is out of our control in terms of the red tape the federal government adds to the allocation process. But just to give you a sense of that, back in November of 2022, the initial action plan was approved by HUD. 1 month later, we got a grant agreement from HUD that was signed between us and HUD, which meant, okay, we can get started. Just a few weeks later, though, they told us, hey, you're getting additional funding. So that kick-started this process of redoing our action plan, redoing our methodology, just making sure we understood what our data was saying. So from January to March, we've been drafting the action plan, the substantial action plan amendment. Next, so we started the public comment period in April 3rd. That lasts for 30 days. So the end of that will be May 3rd. After that, we'll have a couple of weeks to collect the comments, respond to the comments, really dig into those comments, and then with the goal of submitting the final action plan to HUD by mid-May. That kicks off a 45-day period for HUD to review the action plan. And often they do it quicker, but most often than not, it takes them 45 days. All this with the goal that by July, we expect the HUD would approve the action plan and truly have the grant agreement signed for us to get going with the work. So that's just, some of that is out of our hands often. And I should add that in parallel to this timeline, behind the scenes, Tracy and her team are working tirelessly to work on the policies, the procedures, and everything else we need to, once we get the grant agreement signed, we're able to really hit the ground running. So that's the goal. So hopefully HUD doesn't slow us down too much, but we'll be preparing to get those next steps started as soon as they sign that agreement. So the key component for the next couple of weeks until May 3rd is to hear from the public. We love to hear. Last time around, we got a significant amount of comments that we were able to incorporate into the draft, and that was really helpful for us to understand the needs of residents. So in this time around, if you have time, please review the draft document at our website, rebuild.nc.gov. You will see a banner and a link there. You can submit your comment to us by sending us an email. That's the easiest method. Public comments at rebuild.nc.gov. You can also mail us your comments via the Postal Service at Encore Public Comments, P.O. Box 110465, Durham, North Carolina 27709. And if you know someone or persons with disabilities, can also call our number here at 984-833-5350 to either get copies of the action plan or to submit a comment to us if the other means are not an option. And as I mentioned, our deadline to receive these public comments is May 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So please submit your comments by then. And that's all I had. Thank you so much again for having us and allowing us to present today. Thank you.
Do the commissioners have any questions before we
Sorry.
comments? Okay. You want me to open up public comment? Or do you do that, or?
Yeah, we can take,
Okay.
we can take comments if, yeah.
Okay, would anyone care to address this issue? That's what this time is for. We have a public comment session coming up next, and I have people signed up for it, but does anybody want to speak to this issue?
I will make one comment to that.
Well, you come up here and state your name there, Skipper.
My name's Skipper Russell. I'm a farmer over in Bethel. One comment I'm making, I'm speaking on behalf of all the other farmers over through there. We have got some help, but there's several of us just lost everything in the flood. If there's any more money available, we're still trying to recoup from that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Skipper. Yeah, does anybody else want to speak? Okay, I'll close the public comment period on this. So go ahead, Tommy.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming, and I know North Carolina Encore and North Carolina Department of Public Safety, they've really stood by us during this process of Tropical Storm Fred. Some of us toured some of those areas today, Commissioner Ramey and Commissioner Rogers. We actually seen one community where there's 16 homes that they're uninhabitable. It's still just like it was the day after the flood occurred. So this action plan, the mitigation part of it and the money that's appropriated for it, as soon as all this is, if there has been somebody slip through the cracks and maybe those folks still desire to tap into these resources to rehouse themselves. So they'll have to go through this process and apply and be approved as soon as all of this is approved on July the 23rd. Is that correct?
Certain components. So there are other agencies like OSBMDR that's been helping directly with some homeowners that need repair or rehabilitation. That may be their best route for some of the help. In terms of the housing counseling or the homeownership assistance program that I mentioned, indeed, once that agreement gets signed, we can get going with that piece of the work. So that would mean someone that was impacted, that they want to move to that area, they have another house in mind, we can help them secure the housing with the down payment assistance program. Yeah.
I know Mr. Russell spoke on behalf of some farmers. We had some issues immediately after the flood where we had some of their workers were displaced. If somebody owns, the owner of the property, although they're leasing to individuals, the owner still has to go through this process. Is that correct?
Indeed, yeah. It's the owner that has to submit any sort of assistance for. That's true for FEMA, that's true for OSB MDR, and that will be true of any sort of benefits we provide. It's usually the owner that will have to apply for the direct assistance. In some of the programming we're detailing here, rehabilitating rental units, for example, if that is something that we move forward implementing, then the renters that were occupying those units could take advantage of that if that's one of the options. But we haven't got into that piece of the implementation process. But typically, it's the owner that has to apply. Yeah.
Well, I would just like to say thank you, because these are state funds, these are state taxpayer funds that are set aside for these disasters. And this 500-year flood event, hopefully we won't have to go through that again in my lifetime anyway. So we appreciate you coming and standing by our people that were displaced. I know we had 300, Brian, I think you might correct me, there's approximately 300 families that were displaced immediately after the flood, and there was a lot of other people who were impacted beyond that. So thank you again for that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Can I ask just a couple of questions before you leave? So I understand that these funds cannot be used anywhere that's a floodway. Is that correct? The floodway, the flood zone?
Indeed, that's a
Okay.
prohibition by FEMA and by HUD that funds cannot be utilized for floodway. Yeah.
And this may be putting the horse before the cart, I don't know how you say that, about the implementation plan, but do you plan to build multifamily housing or standalone single-family dwellings? Do you have any idea what that looks like going to the future?
I may actually turn that question to my colleague who's in charge of the
Okay.
implementation.
Thank you. That's a great question. Right now, we know of projects that have contacted the county about the availability of funding, but we haven't committed any of the grant dollars to that. When the county opens up the application period, we expect in July or shortly thereafter, at that point, all types of projects can apply. It could be multifamily, it could be single family, and then, of course, the down payment assistance to help people who don't already own homes. And we will make sure that when we post the information about the application process, that we explain to everybody how applications will be ranked one from the other, that we will develop that scoring system in conjunction with the county, and any input that the commissioners would like to have to that, obviously. Like if you wanted to give priority to individuals who lost their homes during the storm, for example, that's a pretty common way to prioritize people. You have the ability to craft that. Our job is to make sure that we stay within the lines of what HUD requires so they don't have to pay the money back. But beyond that, it is basically your program to help develop. Like I said, we've heard about some projects, but to date, we haven't seen any applications or anything like that because the county hasn't opened up that process.
That was really the question that I had, to make sure that we had at least our hands on it in growing the future for Haywood County. It's a tremendous amount of money to be spent, but we want to make sure that it is in line with who Haywood County is and what we want to see her be going forward for the next 100 years or so. So that's good to know. Thanks for answering that question. I'm excited about the down payment assistance. That is, I was doing some math on, and I'd gotten some information on how that down payment assistance was going. That's a big barrier sometimes for people when they're purchasing a home, is how they're going to collect and build that down payment. So that's exciting to see that we're going to have that. But I'm really concerned the most about how we would use the $10.5 million toward what we would construct in the future. So that's the reason I asked that question.
Ma'am, you may be able to answer this. Was that money, could it also entail folks that were in the floodplain and they desire to naturally move up to higher ground? Could that be used toward land acquisition and then the building process? That would be included.
It can. We have some limitations about building houses, but if they were to find a house that's already constructed, then that down payment assistance could be used for that. The main limitation we have around like helping somebody build a new home has to do with HUD's compliance with the Federal Environmental Protection Act. And it just makes it so that it's very difficult for us to implement, especially in a timely fashion. But if someone is able to find a house that's already been constructed, or if they are putting a modular house onto land that they already own or something like that, then the funds could definitely be used in that way.
Calculation on 80% of the average mean income, how fast does that dynamic change? Because we suffered an economic loss here a few weeks ago. One of our major private employer that
Yes.
produced, I think on average, $85,000 a year income. They've announced they're closing. So how do you monitor that moving dynamic? If it fluctuates down or up, that's a moving target?
That's a very good point, and we're well aware of the impact to the Canton community and Haywood County as a whole from the Evergreen plant action. And we are required to use the HUD income tables, and they are updated once a year, usually in the third quarter of the year. But I believe the last time that we checked, which would have been in 2022, the numbers were in the mid-50s, mid to upper 50s for a family of 4 in Haywood County. And for our purposes, if someone is able to show what their current income is, that's what they're going to be qualified by. So if there were a household that was affected by the plant closing, either directly or maybe they had a business that primarily served the plant, then they are going to be able to show us income that reflects the fact that they are no longer making as much money as they were making.
Thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate InCorp, and you've done more than any other agency for us, and we really appreciate it. I know our families out there appreciate it, and the residents in those areas. So thank y'all for all you've done. And you're still here, and you're going to be here for a lot longer. So we appreciate you not forgetting about us. In 2004 when we had the floods, I remember the state did a lot for us then, and it's very much appreciated here. So we thank you. Thank you. Okay, our next order of business is our public comment session. If you would, I have several people signed up to speak. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you would, and then Amy will let you know when your 3 minutes is up, and if you would, just conclude your comments at that point. Audience members may not address the board at any time during deliberations unless recognized by the chairman. Okay, our first person signed up to speak is Skipper Russell. Welcome, Skipper. If you would, state your name and where you're from. We already have Skipper. And if you would, make sure you're talking to the mic, okay? Thank you.
My name's Skipper Russell. I'm a dirt farmer over in Bethel, but I've come up here to talk to you today about something that's come up and what I try to do to preserve Haywood County. It's called cryptocurrency. People wonder why no farmers talk about cryptocurrency, but again, it's something that's popped up. It actually popped up over in Murphy some time back. It just sort of snuck into everybody, and people don't like it for nothing. I'm going to play you a video. I hope you can hear that. That's coming, it's shooting off about 55 decibels of noise all the time, 24/7. And when it first opened, or when they first come into Murphy, people didn't really know what it was. So, as I said, it just sort of snuck in. And it's owned by foreign governments. The one in Murphy is actually linked back down to the Chinese. And it's something that comes into the community when the neighbors over in Murphy, when it first came out, the homes surrounding the area for a couple of miles, they went ahead and put for sale signs up in their house because they couldn't handle it. And again, it's one of those things where that foreign government's coming in and buying up land and stuff. So it's just a continuance noise ordinance and everything. And I know we have all kinds of restrictions in Haywood County of noise ordinances and different things like that, but there's variances limited to things like factories or whatever else. And this facility, it will not, and I repeat, it will not bring no jobs. It might bring 2 security guards, but that's it. And this currency, it's sort of like the stock market. It's traded. All the people investing money, and you might be trading money with somebody in Spain, and it goes on 24 hours a day. But what the building actually consists of, it's just a great big building with a bunch of computer servers in it, and it creates all of that noise, but it also puts a big strain on the power grid. I serve on the planning board, but I'm not here to represent the planning board. David Gillerspoon's back there. He's on the planning board also, and we've discussed this for a couple of months. So I just want to kind of bring it to y'all's attention about what it is, to see if possible that you could do something to stop it. A lot of the counties nearby, specifically like Buncombe County, they met on it one night and they put a moratorium or put a stop to it right then. They didn't want no part of it. But they are zoned, of course, and we are not, which I hope we never are. But y'all can put a stop to it, y'all, in all the unincorporated areas in the Haywood County. And if you will, I wish you'd consider all of this and see if we can stop it before it ever gets started. It was brought to my attention over the weekend about the possibility, since the mill shut down, about the abundance of the power grid down there, that might be an option. And I do know, not from the commissioners, that it has been brought up in Haywood County, because there's already been talk about where that could possibly go. So I want y'all to be aware of it, to see what you can do to stop it before it ever happens.
Skipper.
Okay, any questions?
No, it's just public comment.
Oh, okay. All righty. Yeah, if you can, just...
I'll address that a little bit when you sit down. Yeah, I mean, after we get done with public comment. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll talk through it a little bit.
All right. But anyway, I'm sure everybody in the county would appreciate if this never comes about.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, our next person signed up to speak is Lisa Ledford. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Commissioners. You're doing a fine job. I have read, I'm from Brady Circle in Canton. I live in the 600 block. This concerns the 500, 600, and 700 block. We live at the beginning of the block. We have a neighbor whose noise is so loud, I can hear the noise over my television with my doors and windows closed. He's unstable. We've gone up there several times. We've contacted the sheriff. They won't do anything except between the hours of 10 and 7 in the morning. I've looked at the ordinance. It does not say only between the hours of 10 and 7. It says particularly. I've looked up the definition. It does not mean only. I would like to know why the sheriffs are not allowed to enforce that ordinance in Haywood County. I've contacted the magistrate's office and have gotten nowhere. And I would really like that addressed, because it's not just me, it's all of the neighbors in those 3 blocks. And the man is very unstable. We can't do anything. We own our property. The owner of that building that the man lives in doesn't care. He cusses people out when they call to complain to him. Something has to be done about the noise ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, our next person signed up to speak is David Ekus. Welcome, David.
I put the data in writing. I got to thinking about the difficulties of the Haywood County school system budget and their request for more funding because they were going to have to lay off teachers. I spent way too much time this weekend going through budgets. And my compliments to the manager for his financial staff, the budget that was sent to the state. I read even, there's 186 pages, I think, and I read every one of them. And very well done. And I see they got an award for it, so well done. What I wanted to point out is that if you look at page 1 here, Haywood County looks like it's on a growth path. I apologize, I don't have a bunch of slides. The if you dig into the graphics of the demography of the county, you'll see that I showed 2000 and 2021. This is all from the U.S. Census. And the killer is at the bottom of the right-hand graph, and you can see that the lines get smaller, and it's divided by age groups. So there are fewer and fewer people that will be entering the school system. Since the people of Transylvania kindly came up and spoke with you all about how they solved their problem with the mill leaving, and basically they solved it by getting more smaller businesses in, but they're still recovering. You can see their bump. Now, this is a 10-year picture rather than 20, but you can see people left during COVID. But if you look at their demographic chart, you'll see they have an almost identical chart to Haywood County. You can flash the two back and forth. I was stunned by how close they were. If you go to the next one, I know it would seem that what happens is you get kids in school because people who have children are younger, probably 20 to 50, and people who are moving in are 55 to 80, I guess, and they don't have kids. So they're not putting anybody in the school system, but they are paying taxes. So now you have a question of the mill closing, jobs are going to leave. I don't know how many people are going to withdraw from Haywood County out of the mill, but they'll take their kids with them because they're working age people, and you'll have even fewer. So the problem is about to go ballistic. So there's Buncombe County, and I know you all sending some money over to Buncombe County one way or another. I saw it in the budget, and they have the same problem. So I don't think they're going to be giving up any jobs. It's a quick guess. Back in 2010, they didn't have the problem, but now they do. Pamlico County is a county that's dying, and you'll see the line going down. You see they have a more extreme version of us. And the final one is the spreadsheet of the school fact sheet, and taking the money they showed that they received and how much they had and how many students they had times how much they said they spent per student. It comes out that without the extra money from the Haywood County School Foundation, they had about $1,940,000 surplus, and with it they had just about a $2,600,000 surplus based on those numbers for the school year 21-22. So it's not the current school year. But it does bring a question up that I think you really want to have a chat with the school board and see how that comes to pass. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You might want to stick around. We'll be talking about that later on. Thank you. Okay, our next person to sign up to speak is Todd Cothran. Welcome, Todd.
Good afternoon. I'm here to address number 6, the request approval of budget amendment, library $9,000 to appropriate additional ABC revenues received to be used for purchasing additional books, digital books, audio books, and printed materials. My question to the commissioners is the library, or do y'all know what you're buying? Is there a list of titles and content of what we will be buying? That's my question to the commissioners. And if not, would you consider providing a list? I'm sure the library has a list of what they're going to buy, I would think.
Okay.
So would you consider that?
Okay, so the library folks will be speaking in the first item, I believe, of the regular agenda, and they can address that for you.
Thank you.
Can you do that, Kathy? Is that okay? Okay, good.
That's all.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Okay, our next person signed up to speak is Joseph LePerry. Welcome.
My name is Joseph Lapari. I'm a citizen here. I'm interested in the Greenway because I've been noticing in the news there's a lot of articles now coming out about Portland and San Francisco and a couple other different places where they don't have any ordinances for people sleeping on the greenways. And that causes a lot of problems because a lot of, I'm going to say homeless people, and not that I'm against them or anything like that, but if they live on the greenway, it creates a lot of problems with waste removal and some drug paraphernalia and things like that. And I'd like to see some kind of action happen so that we can prevent what's already happened in other places where this particular greenway has failed. And it's costing them ridiculous amounts of money to support a failed program. So if we can cut that, if we can fix that before it becomes a problem like that, and we can learn from the mistakes of others, that would be very nice. That's basically what I wanted to say. So I just want you to put that in your mind and think about how we can prevent the things that have already happened that were not good in other locations and save our community, because we have a great community. And I moved here 15 years ago and I'm not moving out, So I'd like to keep it pleasant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, our next person signed up to speak was Lois Hollis. Welcome, Lois.
Hello, Lois Hollis, 156 Johnson Hill Drive. I want to add to the person that talked about a noise ordinance. I have been problem with a neighbor that has done lots of noise and music and all sorts of commotion in the middle of the night, in the morning, etc. I have called the police several times, and they said they cannot do anything because Waynesville City does not have a noise ordinance. Waynesville County has a noise ordinance. And I said, well, that sounds kind of interesting because in the county, homes aren't close together, whereas the city, they do not have a noise ordinance, no matter how much noise is made by a neighbor or a group of people on a consistent basis. So I just want to add to the person that was talking before that there is a problem in Waynesville without a noise ordinance. Also, to tail back on the greenways, information has come to us about the Haywood Park for Children. A mother helped her child into the bathroom, and there was blooded needles on the floor. And there was feces on the toilets and the floors. When she came out of the bathroom, obviously she's with her child, her child sat down and a vagrant person sat next to her, and her mother was concerned because he did not seem aware. So she called the police, and the police asked him to leave, and he did. And then after the police had left, he came back. So I don't know what the ordinance is. I have ordinance that the town has made, section 42.2 to 42.4, that addresses vagrancy. And I want to know if the drug laws here in Waynesville are legal. Is drugs legal or illegal? I don't know what's the story nowadays. Is it legal? If it's legal, it makes us understand why Waynesville comes in at a 0 for safety. 100 is safe, and Waynesville's now been demoted to 0. So drugs are a problem, and if they're out free and legal, we got a problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next person signed up to speak is Sherry Morgan. Welcome, Sherry.
Hello, my name is Sherry Morgan, and I watched the previous County Commissioners meeting where Economic Development Director David Francis tried to convince citizens throwing away hundreds of thousands of our taxpayer money to the City of Asheville's Chamber of Commerce to send Haywood County economic development over the past 5 years without one single closed industry, department store, or even a family-style restaurant was a great idea. Because now, since the paper mill has closed, they're doing job fairs for our citizens to go to other counties to get jobs, which will force people to sell their homes in Haywood County or drive hours to work. Have you not realized by now the city of Asheville is being called Trashville because the radical left Sunrise movement runs their city council and the Buncombe County Commissioners, tripling their transient vagrants, tripling their crime, and running off over 100 police officers. The Sunrise Movement hates corporations and free trade. Don't count on them to help Haywood County. Businesses are running from Trashville, and the majority of the citizens of Haywood County say cut ties with Asheville Mayor Esther Manheimer and the Sunrise Movement and quit giving the city of Asheville's chamber our taxpayer money for nothing. David Francis decided to announce at the last commissioners' meeting he was previously a bank director, and he thought it was a great idea to disclose the private banking business of two citizens of this county, one being County Commissioner Terry Ramey, without the permission of either. I'm a retired Wachovia and Wells Fargo vice president and have a degree in banking, finance, and economics. And disclosing a person's banking business in public forum is not only unethical, but it's illegal. We need to quit sending the City of Asheville's Chamber of Commerce money for our economic development and look for real solutions that will bring good corporations and jobs to Haywood County. Don't blame COVID for no economic development from Asheville either. You should have stopped the Asheville money train in 2020 when you continued to see no closed economic deals. Also, David and Kevin, are you planning to readdress the proposed economic 2022 economic development plan of more and more workforce housing in light of the mill closing? We have thousands of new condos, apartments, affordable housing units, and housing developments coming. Please don't Asheville our Haywood County. Thank you.
Okay, the next person signed up to speak is Van Walker.
Hopefully this time y'all will answer.
Please speak into the mic. Nobody can hear you on television. So if you want to talk.
We want, can everybody hear me? We want specifics, honest answers, and no filibustering, Mr. Francis. You left the last public meeting without answering any questions, and I had plenty, and so did other folks. I'm speaking on the behalf of many concerned citizens, so I think you should give me more than 3 minutes. This isn't fun.
You have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you very much.
I'd appreciate if you'd keep it to 3 minutes.
I'll give it a whirl. This isn't fun, and it isn't personal. I don't even want to be here. But the abomination that's going on in this county, approved by you all, the middle three who voted to give Asheville, already given them $800,000. It's disgraceful. What have those loons done for anything? They're wrecking their own economy, And you could stop it. Had you voted for it in January, you would have stopped the $150,000 check you're going to have to write next January. But no, I guess y'all get a hangover from your New Year's Eve party. It's a sad situation when a citizen comes up here and is stonewalled and then insulted by a lifer and told to hit the road if you don't like how we do things here. Someone's been here all their life since the Pilgrims and doesn't have a clue. You were elected to watch out for our best interest, and you wanted this job, didn't you? You keep running for it. Mr. Inslee's been there for 20 years, and all he does is brag about all the great things that he's done. Me. I'm Kevin Inslee. Look at me. I'm a legend in my own mind. Oh, boy. Folks are waking up, and they're waking up big time and saying, why are these guys giving $150,000 a year to Asheville? Are they getting something in return? That's not me. It's what people in the field are saying. Innuendos, rumors. It's pretty serious, folks. Y'all have been conned by Asheville. Conned. I was talking to a friend the other night with someone in government in Orlando. And he said, what's this $800,000 thing? I said, don't get me upset. I can't believe these people have done that. But they continue to do it. He said, well, what is it? He said, I said, the loons in Asheville or Trashville have conned our people into giving them money, and it's up to $800,000 now, for economic development help. And he said, oh my God, I didn't know that con was still around. We had 7 counties outside of Orlando that we'd go to these counties and we'd say, okay, Joe, whomever, you've been here all your life. You know what's best for your county. You're a lifer. You're a good old boy. Tell you what, let's partner up with Orlando. Let's become partners. We're Orlando and you're not. And we will help you with your economic development. Bottom line, they got millions from these suckers. 7 counties around Orlando fell for it. Millions. And they got nothing for it, of course. So, can you honestly say that giving Asheville $800,000 up to this time is smart? Like I said, you 3 in the middle voted for it. The other 2, you're innocent. So, you could do it on your own. You hire a guy for $700,000, which is what you paid him since 2018. He hadn't done diddly squat. That's for I know you're adding in your head there, Tommy. That's for benefits and everything, not just a salary. He hadn't done diddly squat. And you're still paying him. He lost an election, and his bonus was to have a new job for $130,000 a year. He was a tax collector and a bank guy, which he doesn't even know the rules of the bank. And you hire a guy like that for economic development? Why don't you go ahead and hire a CPA or a garbage man? They're going to get the same thing, nothing. So I just don't understand why you guys are up here. This is silliness. This is ridiculous. And the people are waking up, and they're not liking it. It's my tax money. I've been here since 2016. I'm sorry, Mr. Long, I didn't ask your permission. But I've been here since 2016, so that's my money also. And it's disgusting. Will someone please, before you run off without answering questions, justify this nonsensical stuff? Please. Our people want to know. You just can't make this stuff up. How would anybody, if you have an IQ of 2 or above, you wouldn't do this. How in the world can you think this makes any sense? I want to hear from all 3 of you that voted for it, why you voted for this nonsense. Give me at least a convoluted answer. You're good at that. Like, we have needles all over the place because Kmart sells them or Walmart sells them. That was the head guy up there said that. So, I'll let you go. I'm sure you're tired of me ranting. I'll be back next time. And I'll have other things to talk about. That Greenway thing is going to be a bust. 5 minutes. Thank you very much. That Greenway thing is going to be a bust, so I recommend you don't do it because I'll have to be up here again, and I don't want to.
Okay. Does anyone else care to address the board? That's all I have signed up. Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment session. We'll go to constituent concerns. I've got a couple that I want to announce. This Thursday, April 20th at 6 p.m., there will be a public meeting at the Center Pigeon Fire Department at 2412 Pisgah Drive in Canton, North Carolina. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss the change of various properties within the area to an ISO 5 rating, the positive impact on fire insurance rates, and proposed expansion of the fire district to include the affected properties. Number two is on Monday, April 24th, there will be a public meeting at Crestview Baptist Church at 3258 Pisgah Drive in Canton. The meeting is being conducted by the Haywood County Soil and Water along with McGill Associates and will provide updates on efforts to clean waterways of Tropical Storm Fred debris and address access issues affecting ongoing cleanup efforts. Okay, so Tommy, so I guess I'll start with you and we'll go this way and end up with Jennifer. Okay.
I do want to give a report on the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. Privileged to represent the 7 western counties, and we had a conference in Newbern this past week. We had several issues that came up, and I don't know if Mr. Russell, I think he went out, but this crypto mine thing had come to my attention from a commissioner in Cherokee County, and I had inquired about it at the state level. I got an answer back that we possibly need to maybe look into a year moratorium. Haywood County is unzoned, Buncombe County is zoned, and so they did make some inroads on prohibiting that. But for you that don't know about it, and I didn't really know what a crypto mine was the first time I heard about it, but it is actually just a big database, a big building full of servers. Talked to the commissioner in Cherokee County and in Murphy. They've bought an old brick building in town, and this crypto mine basically uses twice the amount of power that the whole town of Murphy uses. So these things sit here and they crunch numbers 24/7, and that noise that Mr. Russell played was a noise made by cooling fans. Some of these units use a lot of water to cool the electronics inside. Some of them use actually those fans that he played. So we're looking into that, and I think the planning board has addressed that. I think they may be coming forth, and I've asked the county manager and the county attorney to look into some steps that we might need to take. Do you have a report on that?
I'm quite familiar with the issue. It's kind of misleading to call them a mine. All they are is it's a large building that contains stripped down processors for computers. And the issue that comes up for the neighborhood is that these processors are ganged up in big racks, and they generate an enormous amount of heat. In their ordinary operation, they generate an enormous amount of heat. The cheapest way to disperse that heat is just to run air by them. And so they run fans that are huge. And the fans, if there's no regulation for it, the fans will just duct outside of the building, and they run basically continuously. They run as long as the economics support it. The problem in Cherokee County is one that's occurred in a few places in North Carolina. They've occurred in lots of places in the United States, where the key element for their business model is inexpensive electricity. The issue in Cherokee County is that the electricity rates for industrial customers in the rural sections of that county are very inexpensive. The electricity rates there are very inexpensive. So the result is that they're ported into their electric utility there, or they have this. You don't need to know all this other stuff, but they have what's called a wheeling agreement that allows them to import cheap hydro-generated electricity from a different area and bring it to the place and use it. It's essentially a business of cheap electricity. That's the big component of the business. And if you have, I've analyzed the electricity rates that are available to such a customer in Haywood County, and they're essentially not competitive in Haywood County. It has nothing to do with the county. It has to do with our electricity rates and the electricity rates available from Duke Power and from Haywood EMC. But you never know, and so the planning director for Haywood County and myself have a meeting later this week to discuss alternative methods of dealing with it. Essentially, you want to have a regulation that deals with the negative impacts on the neighbors, and that is the noise of the fans. Okay, and that and the planning director and I'll be coming to you probably with potentially a request for a moratorium on granting building permits for that kind of use until we can develop a comprehensive regulation ordinance about them. They're a very peculiar kind of use, and it takes a very peculiar kind of ordinance to regulate them legally and effectively.
Let me add, Mr. Queen.
Well, I can go on for a long time.
I think I forwarded, I can. I've got a copy of the Clay County moratorium.
Right.
And you could look it over and maybe make a recommendation after you talk with our planning board at the next meeting. Would that be okay with you guys? So that was a big topic at the meeting. And also, another big topic was, and I know our health department deals with it, we heard from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services chair, and some of the big issues they're faced with is employment shortfalls. It is a statewide issue. Governments, local county governments are facing anywhere from 22 to 28% shortfalls in the ability to hire people. And we had a state senator that piggybacked onto that presentation from Eastern North Carolina, and he said that at the state level, we should have made some plans to get ahead of this curve years ago, because what everyone is seeing is the baby boomers, they're retiring out of the workforce, and there's no one there to replace them. We have a big void from folks who are retiring, and our national birth rate is just not supporting replacing these workers. So I know, Mr. Ekus, to speak to your thing indirectly, this is things that people are facing all across the country. And to your comments, Haywood County, Transylvania County, and all western counties on the latest demographic chart are becoming retirement counties. Our 65-year-old and older population is the highest in the state. And naturally, those folks are not in the workforce. They're not going to add numbers to our school system, more than likely. But, so these are changing demographics that all local governments, municipalities, county governments are going to have to be fast on their feet, and school boards are going to have to be fast on our feet and trying to get ahead of this curve that's coming. And so another thing that was discussed for challenges local governments are facing is compensation for employees. Because of the lack of employees, job retention, and keeping up with inflation, we all here have faced issues of employee compensation and lack of employees. So I give a report to Bryant about these issues, and that's something that we're staying on top of. So those are some things that I brought back. I just wanted to share with you. And we heard from Truist Bank also. They made a presentation for local governments to consider, and I've shared some of these thoughts with Bryant. They do not paint a very rosy picture over the next 18 months. Where inflation's going and the Federal Reserve is raising rates regularly. So their suggestion to county governments is to be very conservative, which we are, and I appreciate. We have stayed ahead of this curve to a degree. We did our employee compensation for job retention, and that has paid off, and I know we've kind of stayed ahead of that curve. So some of these issues we're very familiar with, and we did get some legislative reports about some of the issues that the state legislature are going to be tackling that will directly affect county governments. Senate Bill 692, that's something we all need to keep our eyes on. I don't know if it'll move from the Senate to the House. However, it directly affects community colleges and our ability as counties to have a voice at the table on the board of directors. So that was very concerning. I'm trying to find out more information about that. I've contacted our legislative representative, Mr. Pless, and he's looking into that issue, and he's also looking into the crypto mine situation if he hears other things around the state. So other than that, I did want to comment a couple things. That may be about all I've got, Mr. Chairman, so I'll pass it to the next person.
Just to add on to what Tommy was saying with the crypto, I don't think we need to beat the dead horse to death. I know we're working on that and trying to put some things in place to keep that from happening. I guess going down the list here that I made, going to Mr. Eakes' comment about the school funding, and I know you made a comment about the mill closing and possibly losing a lot of those folks. I will say that probably at least 90% of those folks, if not more, have told me that they want to stay here in Haywood County. You know, I told a story a couple of weeks ago about a job opportunity I had back before I had kids, which has been several years ago, and had opportunity to move, making good money. The facility I worked for was going to buy me a house there that would be mine. And I turned it down, and a couple of reasons I turned it down, and one of those was because of the way you can look out those windows and see beautiful county that we live in, number one, and then number two is I wanted my kids one day that I was going to have to go to school here in Haywood County. So I guess to that point, I feel like a lot of our folks, we're going to lose some, no joke, but a lot of those folks are going to stay here because of that. I guess going on down the list, there was some noise complaints. Matter of fact, I think there may have been 3 different ones. That's something that we will look into. I know that those that are in the city, you know, you will have to address those city folks. We've got city alderman and mayor that was elected, so you'll have to deal with those folks on that. But from a county standpoint, it is something that we can talk to our sheriff and the sheriff's department and see what's going on there. Yes. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the list.
Anything, Terry?
Yeah, I just got a couple things here that I agree with y'all on the deal about the cryptocurrency. I think we need to stay on top of that and make sure that don't go anywhere. And on the NORS ordinance, I understand what they're talking about on these NORS ordinance. I've got a neighbor right above me that keeps a dog tied up on his porch all the time. And that thing barks all the time, and ain't nothing no more annoying than that when it's on, because it causes other dogs in the neighborhood to start barking. And I know how aggravating these noise things can be. And like Brandon said, though, that the ones that are inside the city, we can't do nothing with them. But we probably, if we run into some of them, we can make a recommendation to them, and just tell them that y'all have got a noise problem. I don't mind doing that if I see Gary or some of them and see if we can't get them to step up a little bit. And I appreciate Todd on that library titles thing, because Todd's the one that got one of the bad books took out of the schools like that, and I'm sure that's one of the things that you're concerned in, about the different books that's going in and stuff. I appreciate that too. And the other thing is the Greenway thing on that. I hope that when we when they get it to the part of it where they are going to put the greenways in, if everything passes, that we can have some security on those things and stuff and try to work some way around if there's anything way possible to where we can keep them under control. Of course, I hope they don't, I don't think they will, but I hope they don't try to go on to anybody that's property that don't want them. But where they do have them, I hope we can have them safe, you know, where the people around here can use them and stuff and feel safe. And I believe that's all I got on that right now, but other than somebody mentioning that all the tightening up we're going to have to do in the county, and I feel like I agree we're going to have to, and everybody that can tighten up till we figure out exactly what's going to happen about the evergreen going out and stuff, and I think we're going to need to tighten up everywhere we can. Thank you.
So yeah, we all know that we're facing a new era in Haywood County, and I've said several times in the last couple of weeks that the mill has defined who we were in Haywood County for the last 118 years, and what a great opportunity all of us have to be a part of the future. We are writing page 1 of the next 118 years. And many of the discussions that we've had tonight, in a lot of ways, will tie back to our growth in general, because our largest employer has left the building, and we are going to be looking through the eyes of economic development, workforce housing, our school system, to grow our county back in a lot of ways. I think it's, I said to somebody that I have tremendous respect for in government, I said, when we put our head down and wring our hands, it's over. And so we have tremendous obstacles that we're about to face, and we're going to work through them together. I'm excited about these housing grants, and I want you folks to pay close attention to that program, and I want to make sure as we move forward with that we're doing what's absolute in the best interest of Haywood County. With that will come growth and new houses and places for people to live, and new people will move here, and they will bring young families or create families, and we'll have more retirees move in because it's a fabulous place to live. And so with that, we have to address things like noise ordinances, but be thankful that we don't live in an area that's heavily zoned, because with zoning comes an entirely different set of rules and regulations and headaches. So we'll do our absolute best, I think, to step that along and do the right thing. You know, cryptocurrency or crypto mining was something that was very new to me a couple of months ago, and somebody, it was Skipper, frankly, that called me and said, do you know anything about this? And I had to research that. And so as new things move to us, you know, we're tasked with finding out how to best lead in those circumstances. It's certainly not something we want here, I don't think. It doesn't bring any real revenue. It's a drain on the power grid and on water resources, and it doesn't provide jobs. So we'll keep a watchful eye on that. But again, it goes back to zoning, is that, you know, if you're heavily zoned, you can head that off in other ways. But with that comes a whole lot of conflict, too. So, and one thing I want to leave you with about the schools, and we're going to talk about that in great detail. We've got 3 or 4 items on the agenda, and is about the Greenway. And I made a comment several months ago to several somebodies that are here, and I said, who is going to use that Greenway? Well, because I'm not going to use it doesn't mean that many others aren't going to use it. Typically, there are some bad exceptions and bad apples to everything. There are issues with those. Sometimes there are issues with that in other places, but typically they can be a great source of economic development. There are cases where there was a greenway, I believe on the eastern part of the state, out near the coast, that connected maybe to Virginia. And there was, you know, restaurants and entertainment on one end, and you rode your bike or ran, or somebody'd have to chase me, but anyway, you rode your bike 50 miles, and there was another place to stop and do things. So hopefully, as we go forward with that, as it's something new and different in our county, we can govern it in such a way that it's beneficial to who Haywood County is. Again, we're on page 1 of a whole new horizon here. And so what we need to do, in my opinion, is we need to work together as citizens and as the community and as the board to set our course in the right direction. So I hope that addresses the list of things that I've made tonight, but I think we've got to keep our, as my daddy used to say, we've got to keep our chin up. It's going to be okay.
Hey, thanks, Jim. I'll just add on the cryptocurrency, I had talked with Jody at the planning board, and she said they were already working on something on that. So, and I've been working on it a few months. So, so hopefully we can get something out of that pretty soon. And I do understand they use so much electricity, there's very few places in the county that they could even operate. And I think those may be in the town. So, in the on the greenway ordinance, most of the greenways are in the towns. We don't really, the county really doesn't have very many greenways, if you will. And I will say the county already has, and I think we passed it. I can't pull it up right now, but we passed a grounds use ordinance in maybe 10 years ago that had to where you couldn't camp on county grounds. So we've kind of addressed some of that with our ground use plan. So we already have an ordinance in place where you can't just start camping on county grounds, okay? So we have that kind of already in place. And then I also know that as far as, I know, David, you've been working on new businesses that maybe can go to the, can locate at the mill, and I appreciate you working on that. I've heard some pretty good things. I think we're thinking outside the box, and we're going to be able to use, maybe try to continue to incorporate those wood products in other industries, and I appreciate you doing that. And I know you're talking with the state and some other folks on that, so I appreciate that. And then also I want to announce that our local, the Blue Ridge Friends of the NRA will have their banquet on May 25th, and that banquet, the funds from that banquet go to the shooting clubs at the high schools and the middle schools. And so the coach for those is my neighbor, Brandon Sutton, and he was telling me that Tuscola finished first in the district the other day, and Pisgah was second, and then in middle school, Bethel Middle finished first in that competition. So they're all going to the state. So if you want to get a ticket, you can call me or Brandon, we'll tell you who to call, to go to that banquet. And if you go, you'll be supporting our local shooting clubs, which teach our young people how to handle firearms. And it's really a good, fun night. I always enjoy going to that. But that's May 25th, and I told Brandon I'd throw out, and let him know. So they've set that date. It's on a Thursday night at the fairgrounds. So if you're interested in going to that, just kind of put that in the back of your mind. And their tickets are on sale now, I'm sure. So that's coming up. And then I believe that's all I had. Okay. I'll move on to that. I got everything right, Amy, on the, okay. I'm going to move on to administrative agency reports and presentation, and we have Town of Canton updates. Is Zeb here? Oh, I'm sorry. Zeb, you're back there hiding. Come on up, Zeb.
I got to add one of these to my meetings.
Yeah.
The bells, the 5-minute
like
bells.
that?
Yes, it's nice. No, I want to thank you for the invitation to come and address you and give you an update where things are currently with the town and obviously with the closing of Evergreen. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time going back the last month and a half, which has felt, I think, for everyone in this room and in this community, more than just a few weeks. It's felt like a few years. But I personally, on a very personal level, want to say thank you to the board, not as county commissioners, because in the hours following, and I do mean hours, I heard from Jennifer and Tommy and Kevin and Brandon and Terry, not as county commissioners, but as members of this community. Because obviously we're dealing with the political side of this and the economic side and the technical side and the workforce side. But this again was a death in the family, no more than no less. And we are experiencing every level of grief leading up, sadly, I feel, to the funeral in June. And when you are around elected leaders, Democrats and Republicans, that you operate from citizens of Haywood County, even in those hard times, you feel you're going to be able to find a way forward. Because part of what we're doing is we find these answers is to be with these people, these workers, these families, these children that just need hope from us, that there is 118 days or years left. Because there's naysayers. There's naysayers that the town, the county, this region, this is it. This is that apocalypse that we always talked about but didn't think that we will see. And when you hear that, it's really an indictment on us. Can we pull together and work together to create that better tomorrow? And that's what, as elected officials, we will be judged on. And as I stand here several weeks from that Monday in March, we're doing that. I cannot say enough of the work and the partnerships between the county and the town, the municipalities and the town, the work of many people in this, David Francis especially. From 0 hour, I mean 0 hour, we have come together. Terry, you and I talked about it today. When you have a community that is pulling together and elected officials that may not see eye to eye on every issue, but can come together for these people, we're going to make it. If that is our base and that is our community, then we will find a way to make it to tomorrow. So I think that was a great insight by you, and I appreciate that today, you sharing that with me, because you're absolutely correct. But as we stand now and where we go from here, a few things and a few updates, etc. One, as we build, we've coined the hometown of tomorrow, we cannot forget what got us here. The mill, not just here in Canton, but the Dacos, the Giles, that working class blue collar grit that made Haywood County the great county it is. We can't forget that. We can't throw the old out with the new. We can be a mill town and a blue-collar county without having evergreen. Because again, it is not the machines and the building, it is the people, the relationships, the work ethic, and the character which makes us those things. And as we go into the future, that's what we have to put a premium on. We have to demand people and projects and ideas that honor these workers. If we do that, then we can continue to be something special and unique. I have no plans to be West Asheville. I don't mind being west of Asheville, but I don't want to be any other town. I want to be Canton, and I want to be Haywood County, and I want people to be like us. There's something to be said in this superficial world about being who you are and not like somebody else. But it's the same time, and I've had meetings, I have talked to more real estate agents and more real estate investors than I would ever want to, and I mean that respectfully. But I've said to each of them, yes, we know the opportunities. Everybody in this room knew about the opportunities existing in this county before the mill closing. But our secret is now out. But I've asked, there will be a time and a place that we can talk about that. But let our people heal. And there's a lot of hurt and unknowns and people trying to decide, do I stay or do I look for jobs elsewhere? And I hope they stay, and I think they should stay. Because if the people leave the county, they leave our church pews, they leave our ball fields, they leave our schools. It is my hope, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, that most people in Haywood County stay, and I think they are, then we will stabilize, and it will be much easier to face that tomorrow. But, as always, some people don't listen to advice or do the right thing. We've stated at our board meeting Thursday, it was in the paper, it is a tremendous worry for me in the town, but also in the county, of people, especially ones that are elderly. Just like I have, they get texts, they get phone calls, they're getting knocks at the door. Can I buy your property? Can I do this? That is extremely intimidating, and it's extremely disrespectful to everyone in this county, especially the workers and especially our elderly. When you're taking advantage of people and to make a quick buck, that speaks to one's character, and I have no joy or desire to deal with those folks. I have stressed in time when you come here and you want to invest and you want to help grow our economy back, then let's reward the ones and say thank you to the ones that bring out the best in us, that support us, that want to help us be who we are and grow us in a way that honors these workers and our traditions. Don't make us different, and especially don't intimidate the ones who don't have a voice. So if you're getting these calls and you're getting these texts and you have questions, talk to someone, ask someone, talk to an elected official, contact a lawyer, somebody. If you feel intimidated, you don't know what you're doing by someone that is trying to buy your home, buy your land, or ask you questions about your property, your land, your home, talk to somebody. There is not a rush to do anything because we have to get this right. And once the mill meets this June day, where I think most employees down there will be gone, then we will have to get to work. We have to continue to work with Evergreen as it concerns wastewater. And we have to attract new businesses and new ideas. And I think we can do that as we have in Canton for the last 10 years, bring in new people, new ideas, new money, but don't lose who you are. And so at this point, it is all focused on getting these workers job opportunities. Let them make the decision of where they want to be. But also, we're doing this with the county, lining it up with mental health services and financial services. Give these workers every opportunity, their children, to make the best decisions they can. And then when the dust settles in June, then we start having conversations. And I can't speak enough, Democrats, Republicans, from the governor's office to our U.S. senators to our local delegation across, again, just like in the floods, you're seeing partnerships, but you're not seeing partisanship. Not one person has called me asking what my voting record is, what your voting record is, just like in the floods. What can we do? And again, one of the lasting legacies, let's honor our past by showing people what we can accomplish. Because again, at the end of the day, all of us are figuring out together the next chapter. How do we do a hometown of tomorrow where, at least in my opinion, our children, our grandchildren, how do we build a community that allows them the opportunity to come home to Haywood County? Whether they go straight into the workforce, into the military, into college, let them come home. Because if we build a town with our schools, our churches, our recreation opportunities that gives our children and grandchildren an opportunity to come back and call Haywood County home, then this is a success. It's as simple as that. How do we preserve the best of Haywood County in the past as we build our future? But so far, I think we are doing that. But the challenges are great, and there's risks, and there'll be disagreement. But to Terry's point, when you have the special community we have, we can figure that out, and we can do this. So on a personal level, thank you. We've got a lot of work to do, but as I've said over and over again, I would not want to be in the trenches figuring this out than with y'all, our staffs, most important, the people of this community. So any questions y'all have?
In the mill about getting the mill whistle and making sure it's going to be blown. And I did see where that discussion continued over to the mayor's office, and so you did secure.
I wanted my whistles.
And so hopefully there'll be some plans made to put that over to the museum and
well, I'll do
provide
you
a way to blow the whistle on time like it has for 108 years.
Well, I'll do you one better. Again, that's the type of things that I think are important.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll give it to, again, Camden Warren, who works down at the mill. He gave me the idea.
It
and
was
start.
it was a group discussion.
It was a group
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
Cam didn't have
It
the
went
courage.
through the whole meal.
But it's exactly like that. Some people say, "Why would you want these whistles?" But I sort of go back to Balsams Range Paper Town song. The line in there that says, "This is not another paper town. This is the one that I call home." Those whistles, no matter what you've been going through, where you go in this world, when you hear them, it brings you back to home. And we will constantly need reminders as we go into the future of things that bring us back. Not just the back of the sense of community. I've heard stories. There are people that were in dire straits that the only Christmas toy they got were from those mill workers. There have been mortgages, college scholarships, food put on the table because someone down at the mill cared enough. And if we can have symbols like that I personally would look great at Pisgah Memorial Stadium, then we need those reminders. Us in elected office need reminders what this is all about. We get lost in the minutia and the back and forth. This is about trying to make a community a little better, and those whistles, whether it be those paychecks or the people, have made this community better. So I hope to have more announcements. I'm hopeful in the coming days I can announce tours. I think it's very important that they open up Evergreen in the last few weeks and allow people to go in there to see the place that's given them so much. Even if they didn't work there, I consider it the visitation before the funeral. We need to say our goodbyes to a place that has provided us so much for so long. So, any other questions? Good.
I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your leadership, Zeb.
I'm part of a good team. I'm just part of a good team.
And I'm hearing good stories. People finding jobs. I think if there's Brandon and I are on the MPO board. That's Madison, Buncombe, Henderson, and Haywood County. I guess that's the metro area. They considered us that too. So we're on that metro board, and now that we're going to have a lot of our workers going to Buncombe County and Henderson County to work, because that's where a lot of that's where the more level land is, and that's where the plants are. I think occasionally I'll continuously push that we need 3-lane interstate on each side going to Buncombe County, going to exit 44 from 44 to 27. So that's part of a regional approach that we talk about sometimes, and so that'll be important in the future, I think, and maybe we can get working on that, because my kids work in Buncombe, and it's a horrid drive to drive back and forth right now because the interstates are really packed. So. Anyway, we're working regionally to try to figure this out, and I am hearing that people are finding jobs, and it's really good, and some of them are finding even better jobs. So, and I'm hopeful that continues and that we can get everybody back to work. And I appreciate all the work that you've been doing with David and the other partners that we have. We found out, like on day 1 or day 2, who those partners were that I didn't even know existed. We had Land of Sky, Nathan Ramsey, and then we had some folks at Southwest Commission, and then our health department. I mean, we got as many resources as we have available out to put to work to try to soften this blow, because this is the biggest economic explosion, if you will, in the county's history, I guess I'd have to say. Because it did define us, like Jennifer said, it defined us for 118 years. I think a lot of people moved to Haywood County so they could work there and everything. I never will forget, I was in Rutherford County doing some work one day, and I ran into a guy that had gone to Western Carolina University, and he said that, and when I told him where I was from, he said, oh, I used to work, I went to school with some folks there, and they were going to Western, and he said they really didn't want to go to school, but they went because they could get a job at the mill, and they would make more than they did with the job that they were getting a degree for. So a lot of them were going to get degrees, but they were going to go to work at the mill because they would make more money. And that's what's happened, really, really more when it was Champion. Champion did, like you said, they did so much for the community. My dad used to tell me stories, and I could sit here all day and tell them of what all they did, and it was just amazing that they were that big a partner, because the owner of Champion really cared for the communities that he was in, and he took care of the people. And that's why that mill thrived the way it did, I think, and stuff. So, but anyway, I didn't mean to go on.
No, I completely agree with Brandon. I think people are finding jobs, and I commend these workers for picking themselves up. But I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, we know these men and women.
They're great workers.
And it took a little while for us to put our teeth back in our heads, but as soon as they did, they went to work, finding these jobs.
Yep. Yep.
And again, I think you speak up by Nathan Ramsey, Russ Harris, the Southwest Commission. I mean, and I think we're doing a good job stabilizing that so this does not spread to these other areas. I mean, obviously my heart goes out to the timber industry, the forest, industry. I mean, there's these unattended, I mean, David's nailed it. It's created a wave effect, not just across North Carolina, but South Carolina, Georgia, and it can spread. So I think we're meeting, get up, trying to stabilize that. But again, I think we can have an economic boom in time, but we need to learn from others' mistakes and stand on our own, and we can listen to these other areas. But also, I'm very bullish on the river. I look what Greenville, South Carolina's been able to do on the river. I mean, the river brought, some of these names are right in front of me, brought the first pioneers to Haywood County. The river brought the mill. And to honor that God-given resource, I suspect that river is going to play a major role in dictating our future, as it should. But doing it in a way that learns from others' mistakes, but also is tied to being outdoors and, letting people know we've always known. Every person in this room's played in that river for a long time. So I suspect it'll play a role. But again, building on the future based upon something we've always had and had special here in Haywood. Okay.
And we got great resources. You got the river, you got the rail, you got the interstate, and we got the workforce. That's the main thing. It's the workforce. I know why they're getting jobs is because they know they're good workers, and that's why.
They know how to work.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, Zeb, I appreciate the report you give tonight. And like you said, I appreciate the friendship and the relationship that we have, because within hours after the announcement, we were on the phone speaking with one another and bragging on your staff and our staff as well. They were in communication as well, trying to see what we need to do to take care of our people, and I appreciate that. We appreciate your leadership and appreciate the relationship we have.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Well, again, when you talk to these people, even across the region, it doesn't take long to say, I know someone at the mill, my grandfather worked at the mill, or I'm from a small town. A lot of these people, even though they've moved to different areas, when you go back, they remember spending the summers with their grandmother in Ohio or Pennsylvania or down east, and that's something I know it's important to y'all through all of this. The stories of these men and women need to be told. They need to be documented. Their voices, these workers, their stories, their struggles, their successes are just as important as anyone else in this country, anywhere else they're located. Our people are just as important as anybody else's, and their stories matter. And I think that's what this is. It's personal for all of us, and I think that's why we're working together. This is a family situation. So, anything else? I'll get home to dinner then. So.
You're welcome to stay with us.
I'm good. I can feel my phone vibrating right here. Right now, so.
Thanks, Zeb. Appreciate you as always. Okay, next report will be our fee schedule update, and we have our management analyst, Will Scarborough, to do that. Welcome, Will.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Chairman Inslee said, my name is Will Scarborough, and I'm a management analyst in the County Manager's Office. And I'm here tonight to talk about the Haywood County fee schedule consolidation project we've been working on. So as we were working on the budget this year, we realized that we kind of ran into a problem where the fees have basically been managed by the departments for as long as I've been here. And that basically led to some siloing where different fees for some of the same services were different, and there wasn't a great central point. All of the departments held the fees within their own space. So we wanted to make sure that we moved to a better system of managing that So we're working to consolidate all of those fees into one schedule. And we want to implement a new process to make sure that the fees get updated every single year before you guys, if there are any need for changes. So by consolidating it, there are some benefits that come out of this. One, it's convenient because all of the fees will be in one place where you can look for all of them, anything you're looking for, it'll be all together. Another is that it's efficient. So our plan is to bring the fees before you every single year during the budget process so that you can look at them and see if departments ask to change them, you guys can have input and decide whether or not we need to do that. And then also they're accurate. So everyone's basically working on the same sheet of music, right? So we're all looking at the same fees. We all have the same information and everyone has access to it. So this is the project timeline that we've been working on. We started this in early March. And basically what we did was we reached out to the departments and asked them to evaluate their fees and reach out to other community partners around us, like other counties and other towns, to see if it's in line with what they have. So over the course of March, they were able to do that. And what they did was they sent their fee recommendations back to me, and I consolidated them all into one fee schedule. And I did that in early April. So now we have this board meeting where I will talk about some of that. And then on May 1st, we'll bring that fee schedule before you after getting your input and ask for you to approve it if you so choose. So to talk a little bit about the process, how we started was we asked the departments to compare their fees with the surrounding counties and towns to see if it's in line with what it should be. And they did so and evaluated those fees. And that was the first step in the process. And then next, we asked them if they needed to update any fees that we already had. They did so. And in a document that we distributed to you all last week, basically how that was denoted was it had a up arrow or a down arrow denoting if the fee went up or down as an update. Next, the departments were able to incorporate new fees if they were necessary. If it was something in the past we haven't needed to charge for, but now it's something that's relevant, we added those fees into the schedule, and it's denoted by the word new, where those are in the schedule. And then, if necessary, we consolidated fees. So with some of the fees, basically they were broken down into extremely small ranges in this example, where basically what we wanted to do is make it easier, not only for the departments, but for anyone who's trying to pay those fees or figure out what they need to pay. We want to make sure that they're consolidated into an easy to understand way. And then also the last step is when necessary, we eliminated fees that were no longer relevant. Or sometimes they were just covered by other fees that we had. So we made sure that we eliminated any that weren't relevant anymore. So basically, the departments with fees fell into 3 different categories. 1, where changes were requested. 2, where the departments did not request any changes. And then 3, where there were special cases, which we'll talk about. So for the first group where changes were requested, technically the whole county is not a department, but there are fees associated where it's kind of a blanket, where every department's affected. So the one that I think is most important for us to talk about is the 3% credit card fee. And we're gonna start, it's already charged in some departments, but in FY21, we basically paid $42,000 of credit card fees across the entire county. In FY22, we paid roughly $50,000 in credit card fees. And in FY23, we had $53,000 of credit card fees budgeted. So we're spending a lot of money on this, and we felt like it was the right time to do the 3% credit card fee. We also have development services, and one thing that we learned as we were going through this process was some of their fees haven't even been updated since 2008. So they are pretty far behind. And Garen's here tonight at the end if you guys have any questions specifically for him. But they had a pretty major overhaul, as you've seen in the schedule. And yeah, that one was a big haul for us to do. And then GIS land records, Joey looked at a lot of their different fees and felt like it made sense to consolidate a lot of those because they were broken down into pretty small units and things that could have been a lot easier for anyone trying to work with their office. So those ones also were consolidated. So no changes requested, a group of these. Animal services, they just came before you in 2020 to update theirs, so Howard didn't feel as though there were any that needed to be updated. The library, we're in alignment with their neighbors, so when they reached out, basically the surrounding counties that got back to them said, no, you guys are right in line with what we do. So there's not much worth changing. And then DSS, one thing that's worth talking about for HHSA is there are also clinic fees, so the dental clinic and the health clinic, and those are not included in this because we felt like they needed to stay separate. A lot of their fees are tightly tied to the state, so it just made sense to leave them separate. And then we have the special cases. So the first one's EMS, and basically you all approved in what Travis said was 2016 or 17, a contract that basically what happens is their fees are based on the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services billing rate. And basically what we do is adjust those fees every year to make sure that we capture all of the insurance money that's available. So that's how those fees are determined every year. So those new fees are in the fee schedule, but it's based off of that agreement that we already have with the billing company. The next one is Register of Deeds, and those are basically all tied to general statute, so we can't really change those anyways. We have the Sheriff's Office, and that had no changes except for recently the State Bill SL 2023-8 was passed, and that basically eliminated the sheriff from needing to do the pistol permits. And basically, we budget about $9,000 every single year for that. So it is money or revenue that we'll lose, but relative, it's pretty insignificant. And then we have solid waste, which we're going to continue putting in the budget ordinance, which you all see every year. But once the budget ordinance passed, we'll add that to the fee schedule. So just a reminder, we will bring the fee schedule before you on May 1st, but between now and then, we'd really like your input. So if we need to make any changes, or if you have any input that you think would be relevant for adjusting fees or the fee schedule, it'd be great to hear from you guys. And then Garen and Joey are both available since their two departments are the ones that have the most changes for any questions you may have, but I can field probably any of the other departments. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, we're available.
Go ahead, yeah. Oh, well, I was just going to say that on the 3% fees, and I talked with Brian about it, he said we were going to put signage up to let people know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of expect it when I use a card. I like to use cash, really. I mean, I just kind of do. But anyway, because a card's kind of like a number, and I don't see when it goes out of my pocket and it's not so much there anymore. I have better control over it. But anyway, I think most people expect 3% fees. So if we could have some signage up just to alert folks so they don't get upset, if you will, or they don't understand. But I know I personally, I don't take cards for payment because, because there is a fee. So, but I think that would be good to make sure we have proper signage at all the places that we'll be doing that, and maybe pretty big to where when people go in, they'll be expecting it.
Okay.
So that was the comment I had. Go ahead, Brandon.
Just to make sure, I think you said at our next meeting, you'll give us a list of all the changes. And what I did notice, sir, I guess you assume that they're always going to go up. There is a bunch of them that's coming down as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And that's just getting everything in line with where it should be. So if it needed to come down, we made sure that it went down.
And to Kevin's point, I know we're losing revenue on the pistol permits, but it looks like we're making it up in the credit card fees, because if we're spending $53,000 there, that's a lot of money, so.
Yeah.
But I would like to see the list to see, give our input.
It is a cost. I mean, you have to factor it in. And if somebody's paying $2,000 in taxes, if it's 3%, that's $60, so that's real money.
Yeah, and the tax collector already charges 3% on card transactions.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah,
And he's
so-
got a sign up, I think, too,
Yeah.
so, yeah. And, okay. But I had looked at, seems like the billing fees, I saw some of those went away.
Yeah,
And
so.
You
yeah,
want
okay,
I might
talk
get you
about
down,
that.
Garen, because you know me, that's what I'll get questions about is if you could quickly explain the septic tank.
Yeah, the septic, so what we did, like Will was saying, is we looked at all the surrounding counties, Macon, Jackson, Transpacific, to see where we were in line with our fees compared to theirs. And we found out, because for building inspection, it was 2008 since this was visited, and environmental health, it was 2012. In environmental health, the fees are fairly in line other than septic. In North Carolina, there's a 2 permitting stage for septic systems. It's an improvement permit and an authorization to construct. The improvement permit is for someone who wants to sell their property, and an agent is going to list it. They need something to go to closing with the real estate attorney, and it shows there is an area viable for the septic. The authorization to construct is the actual permit to install, where we need to know how many bedrooms the house is. Does it have a basement? Where are the decks? How does the driveway come in? So it's very specific. That's the reason for the 2-stage permitting, or for that, and it's across the board in North Carolina. Those fees we looked at, we were looking at lowering that improvement permit fee slightly, but raising the authorization fee. The way it is currently now, there's a fee for the improvement permit, and those permits are good for 5 years. So once you apply for the authorization, we were having people pay $100. We felt like raising that authorization fee, doing away with the $100 would help cover that.
Okay.
And it's going to raise the entire fee of the whole permit combined. But like I said, for the developers, it'll go down slightly. And it's a little bit of a wash, but that fee will go up. It will go up unless there's a feel that it's a little too high, then we can adjust it. We can not take it as high.
So somebody needs someone needs an improvement permit. They're going to subdivide lots.
Yes.
What is their fee going to be with this new schedule?
$275. It depends
and
on how
that's
many.
lower than it was.
It is lower.
Right.
It was 300, so it's
Right.
it's slightly lower.
Okay.
But the authorization, the final permit to pull the building permit will go up.
So then when they pull the permit to build a house, that'll be 500?
That'll be the total permit. So if the improvement permit's already there, then that remainder to get to 500.
225?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And then, like I said, environmental health, there was not a lot of fee adjustment other than what you're addressing right there.
Right.
Building inspections, you'll notice there is a number of
Right.
fees.
I saw
And
that, yeah.
really, when we looked at it, we were just trying to come to that medium of what the surrounding counties were. Obviously, you can look at Buncombe, Henderson, and theirs are significantly higher. A septic permit over there could be $1,000 in Henderson. And
Right.
we were not going to go to something like
Yeah.
that. But, so we're trying to find that happy medium for what Haywood County fits into. The counties that are comparable in size.
Okay, then I noticed, okay, so used to, when you would go out, you would have a fee for an evaluation as far as where the septic was, for you to market for the landowner, and that was $100, and that goes away, correct?
It's still in place.
It is? Okay, I thought I saw that going away.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's still in place, but, and it's for a lot of times when we don't have a record. Sometimes it'll be if we have a record and someone's wanting to build an addition on or a deck. And some of these we can look at in the office and say, this thing's 500 feet away, it doesn't matter. We're not going to worry about this, charge you. But when it's so close to the house, and we need to make sure they're not going to damage the septic system or collapse the tank or do something that's going to cause problems even to the structure they're building, that fee will still be in place for us to go out. If there's no record for the septic, obviously we've got to go out there and try to locate a septic and figure out where that is, and that fee will still be in place.
Well, okay, okay.
But I encourage all of you to look through those fees because it is an adjustment, and call me, reach out to me. We'll talk about it, and this is just our first shot at it. Obviously, we'll work with what you feel altogether is appropriate.
Well, I appreciate you going out into the other counties to try to get us in line with what they do, so.
When we did it, we found out, especially in building inspections, because it's been we were the cheapest county in the region by far. So.
Well, I think what folks will see is we've been very friendly in Haywood County. That's why a lot of people move here. We've got a 16th lowest tax rate in the state. We're strong on public safety, and we've been very reasonable on these things. But, you know, in a business like fashion, you guys have looked at this, and it's time to revamp things. So time to get caught up.
And we have taken into consideration when we did this, our low income, things like that. We're not going to really raise these fees a lot for a single-wide mobile home or something like that. But when a $1.5 million house is built, and those fees were comparable to a 1,100 square foot house, we knew that we needed to change the system and adjust that a little more.
Right, yeah, that's true, because you're out there a lot more inspecting. Right. And people need to realize, too, the fees that they pay are basically paying the staff for the work that they do, and the staff they're basically interpreting and state rules. So the state requires these things, and then our people are there to make sure that they're followed, and they have to be paid. And so these fees really pay our staff to do those things.
Obviously it's not going to cover the cost for us, but it's lessening a little bit of the taxpayer having to pay for someone that's wanting to build a home.
Property taxes, yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're right.
I would just say kudos to the library and to Animal Services for being on point with your fees. That's nice.
Hey, Will, good job.
Yeah, good job for sure.
You know, I know this has been a lot of work for you. I like your presentation. You did really well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Put my glasses on. Can't see. Okay, next order of business will be discussion adjustment to the agenda. I do not have anything. Does anyone else have anything on that? Okay, next order of business will be our consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions on items 1 through 6 of the consent agenda?
I have one comment on item number 5, and the request approval of resolution supporting the establishment of local county laws extending deer gun hunting season on private property. This is a resolution that we piggyback on with Clay County. Clay County Commissioner Clay Logan approached me at the Southwest Commission meeting, and also he actually called me again about it. I found out that our region is only one in the state that does not allow deer hunting through the Christmas and New Year's. The rest of the state gets to enjoy deer hunting with their kids over Christmas holidays and coming in from Christmas break and develop family memories. So with the influx of the deer population that's just become astronomical, I know it has in my area, I think this is a common sense approach to maybe maintaining a healthy deer herd and also allowing some of our families to enjoy an extended deer hunting season so they can enjoy hunting with their kids and developing and making memories. So Clay Logan brings this resolution for us to consider, and I highly recommend it that we do this. Speaking of the influx, right close to my home within the last 2 years, there's so many deer that I know 2 guys personally that one guy incurred $9,000 of damage to the front end of a brand new Nissan pickup truck on 276, and another guy incurred about $4,000 to a Dodge pickup truck. So, you know, they're getting to be everywhere. They're like gray squirrels. So to manage that population, it's a positive to manage that herd population before disease strikes and to develop memories and allow some of our kids to allow a couple of weeks extra hunting season. So I expect something similar to this to come down the pipe for discussion at the wildlife meetings about turkey population. Possibly a fall turkey season might be coming as well. So I just want to comment on that resolution and recommend to the other commissioners that we adopt this with Clay County.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Long. I'm a big deer hunter myself, and I think my boys will actually enjoy it more than I will, having that opportunity. And I know that one thing you didn't mention, but I know personally that you've had to replace and fix a lot of your fencing as well because of the deer population. So I think it's a good idea. And I guess moving on to number 6, I know we talked about the library.
Need to pull that?
Oh, they're gonna talk to.
Do we need to pull that from the agenda?
That's what I was going to ask. Do we need to
separate
take that
consideration?
out since we're going to have a discussion on that? Or?
Okay, let me think. Okay, all right, so we'll vote on 1 through 5, and we'll put 6.
You need me to make a motion to do that?
Well, we should have done that during the adjustment of the agenda.
Yeah, we should have. Kind of slipped by there, didn't it?
I just happened to think about it as Commissioner Long was talking.
Okay, well, okay, yeah, go ahead and make a motion that we, if you want to make a motion that we put item 6
Regular agenda.
in the regular agenda as, let's just call it,
We add it to the one she's.
okay. You're right. Okay, thanks, Amy.
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
And
Now,
I'll make the motion to move item number 6 on the consent agenda to our regular agenda.
we'll call it item 10.
Item number, whatever that is, 10. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so we'll be voting on 1 through 5. Will we straight, Amy? Okay.
Made the motion. We need a
I
second.
second it. Vote on it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. You guys.
I make a motion that we adopt items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda.
Is there a
Second
second?
that.
And I just want to say on the deer hunting, that there's more deer in this county than I've ever seen in my life, because my son-in-law probably killed a deer within probably a few thousand feet of your farm, because Ronnie James, the deer was killing his crops.
Hard to say, probably ran over it.
Yeah, so, yeah, he did. So it's really, yeah, so we need more days of hunting. Okay, and hunting is conservation, I always say that. Okay, so all in favor, say, any other discussion? I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. You want to oppose? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, that was items 1 through 5. Okay, next order of business is we'll move to request approval of the National Library Week Proclamation, Community Engagement Librarian Zachary Jones. If you would, just answer Mr. Cothran's question, or if you could allude to that about the, what the $9,000 is going to, what it's going to purchase. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all waiting.
Hi, my name is Zachary Jones, and I'm the Community Engagement Librarian here in Haywood County. I would like to thank you all for allowing us to come here and to shine a spotlight on the fantastic libraries that we have here in the county. The specific topic for discussion today is the National Library Week, which is coming up starting this Sunday, April 23rd, and we have some really great things planned. As with anything that we do at the libraries, our mission guides us. Our mission is inspiring our community to connect, discover, and grow. This ties into this year's theme for National Library Week, which is There's More to the Story. It's a week-long celebration of all of the great resources libraries provide to their communities beyond what the books are in our collection. We have digital resources, crafting and cooking classes, our Library of Things collection, our seed library and giving garden, community meeting spaces, genealogical and local history resources, and we also offer support for local businesses, job seekers, and entrepreneurs. For this week, we have in-person programming that is centered around libraries, including a bookmark and take and make kit, a cooking demonstration using appliances from our Library of Things collection, craft and storytime programs for children to inspire lifelong love of libraries. And it begins this Sunday with a kickoff party at the Canton Library from 2 to 4 on the history of the Canton Library. And the week ends with a special screening of a popular book to movie that takes place in North Carolina. Due to licensing concerns, I can't actually state the name of the movie, but if you call us at the libraries, we will be able to let you know that name. We'll also be hosting our first ever bookmark contest. So 5 winners will have their design printed and made available at all library locations until August 2023. This contest runs throughout the entire month of April. You can stop by any of our libraries to pick up a form to submit your entry, and the form is also available online. This is a copy of the specific proclamation. I'm not going to read it today, but here it is in the text in full. And I would urge everyone to connect with us. You can visit us online at haywoodlibrary.org, or you can follow us on Facebook at Haywood County Public Library to be notified of upcoming programs and events. And again, I would like to thank you all for allowing us to come here and highlight this tonight.
Okay, so let's go ahead and approve the proclamation, and I'll have Kathy come up and talk about the other issue. So can I have a motion? We approve item 1 on the regular agenda. And Jennifer, you're on that board. So.
I am. And before I make that motion, I would like to say that I am continually amazed at the way the library engages in different ways. And every time I have an opportunity to be with the library board, I learn something new that our library does and does very well. So
thank you.
I appreciate what y'all do. So I make a motion that we request approval of National Library Week Proclamation, Community Engagement, that Librarian Jones just presented to us.
I second the motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Hey, thank you. Appreciate you coming out, Zach, and hanging around.
All right, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy. You can let us know about the.
So if I may, I'd like to read just a small portion of the library's collection development policy. This policy is posted on our website at haywoodlibrary.org. I won't read the whole thing, but I will read just a portion of it just to give you some idea of our selection process. The collection development policy establishes guidelines for the acquisition and management of library materials that meet the educational, informational, recreational, and cultural needs of the citizens of Haywood County while adhering to the library's mission and vision. Within budgetary means, the library will provide materials to maintain and to enhance library core collections to include print, audiovisual, electronic, digital, and other formats for all ages. We have a number of selection criteria that we use. I won't go through all of them, but there are about 12 different criteria. And the library also engages in selection practices that are responsive to the changing needs of the community and viewpoints across a broad spectrum of opinion and subjects, while providing access, equal access to all. Libraries do not advocate for the ideas found in their collections or in resources accessible through the library. The presence of books and other resources do not constitute endorsement of the contents. Selections are not based on anticipated approval or disapproval, but on overall value to the collection. The library's role is to provide access to information reflecting multiple points of view. And then as far as selection itself, we have 6 degreed librarians who do select materials for all of our branches. And this responsibility is shared by these designated librarians with suggestions from staff members and library users. Ultimate responsibility for selection and expenditure of budgeted funds rests with me, the library director, within the framework of policies approved by the Library Board of Trustees as well as the county commissioners. This policy was last approved by the Haywood County Board of Commissioners in November of 2020. So to answer your question, and I'm sorry I did not catch your name, the $9,000 that will be spent, we do not provide a list of the titles that we will be purchasing. We do not ever provide a list of the titles that we're purchasing to the public at large. I would like to say that our collections, the most important selection criteria is that they are community-focused collections. That is our number one collection criteria in terms of adding materials to our collection. And this year, just this fiscal year, since July of 2022, we have circulated 132,000 individual print materials, and we've circulated nearly 60,000 digital materials to our cardholders. And both of those are increases in numbers, and that's why we have requested the additional funds over and above what was budgeted by the county, which was $2,500. We received an additional $9,000, which we would like to spend on print materials and digital materials for our collections at all of our branches. Okay.
Anybody got any questions about that?
How does people get to the books? I mean, when they come and check the books and stuff out, do they just look at a list, or how do they find these if they're not?
A lot of people bring in lists of books because we have a lot of avid readers. So they'll bring in their own list, or they'll ask our staff for recommendations. We also have the New York Times bestseller list posted. We have that information on our website. So there are a number of ways that people find what they want to read. A lot of people just come in and browse the shelves. They may not have any idea about what they want to read. I know there is a lot of concern by parents about what their children are reading or selecting in the public library or in their school library. Ultimately, that responsibility does lie with the parent or the guardian of that child. I'm a parent of two children who are in their 30s. They were both avid readers when they were young, and I was fortunate to be a stay-at-home mom, but that also meant that we didn't have a lot of money. So going to the library was our form of entertainment, and they would both check out as many books as they could, but I always made sure that I looked over those, or their father looked over those, to make sure that those were appropriate materials for them and things that we wanted them to be reading and learning about.
Any questions? Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Zach. Our next item is to approve a contracting with Southern Disaster Recovery to set up, operate, and close out temporary debris management sites and haul out of the resulting reduced vegetative material, and approval for county manager to execute all associated documents. This item is under the contract resulting from the state of North Carolina's invitation for bid, and that's number 19-IFB-015120-DAD. Regional preposition debris hauling, and will include debris removed under emergency watershed protection and STRAP grants. That's STRAP grants. And our Assistant County Manager, Chris Boyd's here to talk to that. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You stated a lot.
Yeah, that was a mouthful.
In that mouthful, but I'll summarize quickly for you. As you all are aware, we received some funding from Natural Resource Conservation Service for the Emergency Watershed Protection Stream Debris Removal Program. We're moving forward with that. Anticipate letting some of those bids in early June, possibly even late May. So with that, there are many miles and many linear feet of stream bank. We will be moving through those emergency watershed protection projects in groups or phases, if you will. So while there's a lot of stream miles, these will be grouped together. We are most likely to receive multiple contractors bidding on multiple projects, and will award to a great deal of different folks, is the likelihood. So with that, we need to have one central management area for temporary debris and the reduction of that debris and hauling out to final disposal area. So with that, we're asking for the ability for the county manager to execute all documents to contract under the state contract with SDR just to operate the temporary debris site. That's likely to include some grinding. It's likely, if we can achieve all of the permitting, have some type of reduction with burning to keep some of the mulch out of our landfill. So there's a lot of unknowns to that, but we're going to be seeing a lot of different contractors working in and around the waterways, so we're asking for the ability to have one management group at the temporary debris site.
I got any questions? I know Brandon, you and Tommy probably get questions about this.
I know that I've said this several times. I serve also on the Soil and Water Board, and their state convention was in Cherokee a few months back, and there was some breakout sessions, and I said, I want to go to the strap session. And it was, they do a very thorough job in getting rid of this debris with these different, you said chipping it and burning it and all sorts of things. And so they had several examples of before and after. And it's that these were some major storms that had, what we saw was from major storms that were on the coast. And so you can imagine the volume of debris that they were able to do things with and to get rid of it and once they cleaned it up. So that STRAP program is really a good program for sure. Not that it needed to be validated, but just to let you know when they consolidate that material that they pick up, they do a thorough job with it.
Yes, ma'am, they do.
I know you mentioned the process is getting started and getting underway, and I think it's important to note for those that may be listening that next Monday we're having a meeting at Crestview Baptist Church, CWP, so probably a good time just to mention that while we're talking about all the debris cleanup. So just so folks that are watching or listening will know that we're having that meeting, and that meeting's more for a right-of-way of entries and trying to get access to the river so we can clean it up. So other than that, we've been in communication about all this for quite some time and had a lot of discussion about it, so I don't really have any
Now, so y'all went out today with some House representatives from North Carolina House, and I guess they saw some of the devastation that.
Yeah, one of the issues is
we're not getting enough money to do
we're
that.
not getting enough money to do what we need to do, and I think that needs to be communicated as well. I mean, we got some money to do some cleanup, but we want to do more than that, and hopefully we will get more funding. So bring these representatives up today and pretty much spending all day with them. I know that we were all there to begin with, but Commissioner Long, Commissioner Amy, and myself spent the better part of the day with them. And you know, when you see things, you can tell them, make a phone call, send emails is one thing, but I think when they actually lay their eyes on the devastation and what we're talking about, it goes a whole lot further.
Did you stop at the slide and show them that?
We didn't stop at the slide, but we did drive by it and discuss
kind of point
it.
it out? Yeah.
I know we did on the bus I was on. I don't know if we did on y'all's bus, but had a lot of discussion. We made many stops. You know, we went through Bethel, Crusoe, Canton, and Clyde, and they got to see firsthand, you know, what was left. So hopefully, when it's all said and done, we'll get additional funding and do what we need to do.
You know, and I will say that we are blessed in Haywood County to have the delegation that we have, our representatives from Raleigh. Mark Pless brought John Bell. He and Mr. Bell co-chair a disaster relief subcommittee in Raleigh. And we had a commissioner from Henderson County, Jennifer, I can't remember her last name, But we also had Carl Gillespie and we had Mike Clampett, and I see Congressman Edwards, field representative, sitting in the audience tonight. So we are very blessed to have the support network that we have here. And I've said it before, from the governor's mansion all the way to Washington, D.C. During this whole process. So this is just another step toward our goal of trying to get there. But I know there are some concerns about budget shortfalls. But you know, I will say that we are blessed with the representation that we've had and the support that we've had from all across all branches of government. So. Balcom, excuse me, yes, thank you, Ms. Best. Jennifer Balcom from Henderson County.
She's a rep over there.
She's a representative that took Tim Moffitt's place.
I do know that, speaking of John, standing there on the riverbank, you know, looking out over the river and the rock bed that's in the center of the river, his comment to me is this is a no-brainer. So, you know, like I said, it's like the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, this wasn't a picture, this was reality, so.
Yeah.
That slide was really unbelievable. I mean,
well,
it's just.
It was.
It's not supposed to happen like that.
Yeah. You know? And let me also say, concerning this whole process, like I say, I just came back from a state meeting, and some of those folks in eastern North Carolina, after 6 years after Hurricane Florence came through, there are still folks living in hotels. A fellow commissioner of mine said she went to church with a couple of folks that had still not gotten back into their home. And so thanks to our staff here, county manager on down, I believe we have done an excellent job with our paperwork. You know, you talk to folks about, we already got our FEMA reimbursement for that $5.5 million that we put up front out of fund balance. And you know, getting the paperwork in from the county office, getting it turned in, having all your T's crossed and your I's dotted, that's key to this process. And, you know, I think we've had a very efficient process here in Haywood County, and we've had state EM provided them an office. And, you know, hearing these stories from across the state, it's refreshing to know, you know, what a privilege it is to live here in Haywood County and have the staff and the workers and the people, you know, that we have here during these times. So I know that's what makes this so attractive to a lot of people. So we're very blessed.
Yes, sir.
I'll entertain a motion then to approve item 2.
Motion.
Second.
Other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, item 3 is to request approval to accept and appropriate North Carolina Office of State Budget Management pass-through grant in the amount of $1.9 million and approval of municipal agreement between Haywood County and the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and approval for the county manager to execute all documents. And you're still here, Chris. So that's you too.
Thank you.
Oh, let me say something too. I'm sorry. I meant to say that, Christian, we appreciate the work you do on keeping these grants. They have a lot of strings attached, and we have to follow that money. And Christian has actually had to add staff to take care of all that. So, so it was like Tommy reminded me that when he was talking about, you know, our staff. So, Christian, you're a big part of that. You're the main part of that. Is the reason we got that reimbursement so fast, probably because the paperwork was filed probably on time and correctly. Because we have heard horror stories, but we don't have horror stories, at least not yet. So anyway, I just want to point that out. So, okay, Chris, sorry. I forgot to do that.
Thank you. Haywood County received a special appropriation from the General Assembly in the form of a grant to Office of State Budget and Management, then to Haywood County, for a pedestrian walkway on Highway 110 in the Bethel community. Haywood County staff has worked on securing the grant funds, and what you have in front of you is the request to accept and appropriate. North Carolina general statutes also prohibits counties, all 100 of us, from doing work within DOT right-of-way or on DOT property. So with this, the only way to accomplish the goal of building this pedestrian walkway is to contract with NCDOT to perform the work or allow their subcontractors to perform this work. So there's a lot to this as well, Mr. Chairman, but it is essentially to accept the grant, appropriate, and allow the county's manager to execute the documents with NCDOT to accomplish the program. And I can assure you that Christian and her staff keep us straight with this. There are very many strings to each one of these grants.
Yeah, there is.
They're very different, and without the folks in finance, we would not be able to be to this point with this particular grant.
Chris, is there a sunset on accepting this grant? Do we have to act on this tonight?
There's one.
Is there a sunset on accepting this grant? Do we have to act on this
We're-
item
we're-
tonight?
we-
Can
we-
can we?
Deadline for expenditure, I believe, is July 2024. We don't have to act on it tonight. However, we're getting critical to getting the agreement to the State Board of Transportation for review and approval and getting in the letting window for this year.
2 weeks is not going to kill us, though, right?
Why do you want to make?
What's your thoughts? Why do you want to table it? What are you thinking?
Well, I've got some feedback from the community, and I don't know of anybody that really wants this.
I would agree
Well, I
with you.
have
I mean,
too.
I've got a lot of comments as well, so.
I have to.
Maybe it'd be best to wait. a couple
We
of
can
weeks.
discuss this for a couple of weeks and allow some more community input on it. Is that possible? Is that okay?
I'm okay with it.
Certainly.
I would make the motion to table this until next
I
month.
have had phone calls now that you mentioned it. It's been a while, but it's okay. Thanks for bringing it up, Tom. Okay.
Made a
Okay.
motion? I'll second it.
No, oh, wait a minute. What, you made a motion to table it?
To table it.
Okay.
Till the next
Till the
meeting?
next meeting.
All right, well,
Next
just-
month.
okay.
Give us a 2-week moratorium on deciding on this.
All right, Frank, I'm sorry, Frank, I should have.
This is just a note for people who might be looking at this title of this item on the agenda. It refers to a municipal agreement. That's the DOT's document, and it's the DOT's thing that they've asked us to sign for them to do the work with our money. The thing that's peculiar about it is apparently the DOT doesn't have one of these forms that says "and county." It says "and municipality." It's not a municipality agreement. It's an agreement only with us as the county. It's just that's their document title, okay? This is a direct appropriation from the General Assembly to us to do this work. We are contracting with the DOT to accomplish it only because we're required by law to do it through the DOT. The money came from us directly as a direct appropriation from the General Assembly. It's not anything that we have any control over in that fashion.
Can we get some details on what do you have an outline or a plan of what this $1.9 million is supposed to do and where it's supposed to start and end? And
Certainly bring that back at the
Okay.
next meeting for
Yeah.
you with
You know,
diagrams and everything.
Of course, well, it would be nice, let's put it this way. I know Maggie Valley Sanitary District is buying up a lot of land, and they want to have hiking trails on this land in the Campbell Creek watershed and Johnson Creek watershed. And it would be nice for them to have a grant to refurbish those trails, because that is what their ultimate goal is for recreation in that community is. And it gives people coming to Maggie Valley a great day hike, if you will. And it's kind of like from Water Rock Knob, that area right there of Campbell Creek on the backside of going up Balsam, going, on the right there. It's on the other side of the mountain. So I don't know if that's possible or not, but it would be good if we could. But I don't know if we could or not, but
The legislation
it does say that it has to be.
that's
Okay.
specifically for this project, we would have
It's
to.
already been approved at the General Assembly, at the legislative level.
Yes, sir.
So it's already approved, it's a pass-through, so basically, is it gonna matter if we do turn it down, I guess?
Well, it's ultimately this board's decision to accept and appropriate the funds.
We have to appropriate them where it says to go, is that it?
Yes.
This would be called, in Raleigh, this would be called an earmark, and people who are against it would call it pork barrel. But the earmark comes from the legislature with as much detail as the General Assembly passed in that budget to describe what the use was for it. Your limitations for use are in that budget of the General Assembly that passed it, that put that 1.9 million for this purpose in Haywood County. If you turn it down, it's no big deal. It just reverts to the state. They just simply don't send the money down here. You can accept it or you can reject it. The $1.9 million came from Raleigh with this requirement that it be done by the DOT. Aside from that, you can say thank you very much and send it right back to them if you wish.
Well, I'm not showing my cards on whether I'm for it or against it. I just think it would behoove us to allow some more public input over the next 2 weeks to where we can come to a decision and see
Some
who
more
wanted this.
clarity on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually, the item doesn't even really give details about what the money's supposed to be used for. Or I don't read it that way. Do you?
Not real clear. We need some
We
clarity.
need to know
So the
what
way
the
we're
project
looking
is
at it
going to
here
be.
is, we're not doing exactly what it's going for.
Yeah, we have, to get that detail, all we have to do is take a look at the budget that was passed in Raleigh that contained this appropriation. And I'll tell you that the budget bill is about 180 pages of small print.
You've read every bit of it.
At times, I've read way more than I wanted to of it. But we could go back and look at the budget that was passed that contained this appropriation, and it'll have on it, next to the line, it'll have about a sentence or two that says what it's for. And the only thing we're required to do is follow that instruction that is in that budget appropriation, and however much more to say about it, I don't know. I haven't looked at this one. We could look it up in 15 minutes. It's just a matter of looking it up.
Call a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And that was to table it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Okay, Christian, you're up. Request approval of a resolution for the funding formula for the current expense for the Haywood County Schools for fiscal year 24 through 26, fiscal year 26.
Good evening. Yes, we have the resolution here for the funding formula. I'm not going to read it to you. It's kind of wordy. Basically, the formula is the same as it has always been, except the per pupil appropriation increases by 3.25%. That's a lot of words, but when you plug the numbers into that formula, it will, the total give to the schools for their operating will increase by about $591,000 over this current fiscal year for fiscal year 24.
Did you want to say anything about it, Brian?
Other than we have Dr. Putnam here to talk about what it means and the impact it will have to the school system.
Okay. You want to say anything, Trevor? I know you've been here, so. I'd hate for you to come and just not be able to speak.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you if this were to pass. It would be a needed bolstering of our finances. We have incurred an unfunded mandate, a state mandate, to pay non-certified employees at $15 an hour. We were told to do so mid-year of the 22-23 school year, which hit us for about $500,000. And now we are paying that fully through this year. We were at least able to budget for it because we knew it was coming rather than retroactively. Please don't take anything I'm saying as negative as far as the pay. Our employees deserve that. They deserved every penny of it and more. However, there was no money for us to pay them this very deserved rate. You factor in an increase of approximately 3% for retirement contributions on our behalf, and a cyber insurance increase of 39% approximately. You factor in utility costs, I think went up around 10%. So I won't bore you with all those. I can certainly spout all of them out to you if you would like, but you factor all that in and it's a tsunami of financial doom
And so the 3.25 will give us some time and some flexibility to graciously reach the size that we should be, which means a reduction in staff. And we're able to do that through natural means. People decide to resign and go somewhere else to work, or change careers, or they decide to retire. And we're able to downsize in that way rather than enacting a RIF policy that takes the last one in and they become the first one out, which doesn't feel good to anyone. And so we appreciate this. It helps offset some of those costs. It helps offset the unfunded mandate for our non-certified staff, and it gives us time to reach a size that we should be.
I know Kevin and Chairman Inslee and Vice Chairman Rogers were in communications with the school board and you guys. Could y'all comment to the other commissioners, your thoughts and all this?
Basically, it boils down to what he said, unfunded mandate and our numbers dropping as we've discussed tonight, which has put us in this position. And, and our stance, I know as a board here, has always been the same. We've tried to put our priorities in order, and one of those being education and taking care of our folks at our schools, and that's from our teachers down to our kids. So I think we're putting our money where our mouth is and doing what we were elected to do, and that's to take care of our schools. You hate to see it, happen, and I wish these unfunded mandates wouldn't be passed down, and I wish we could do something to keep our numbers up or get them back up. But as you learned down in Raleigh, it's happening across our nation, and this gives them time to make plans, going forward, to hopefully put some money back in the reserve or into their fund balance and put a plan together. So I know I've been contacted by several members of the board thanking us, and I said, well, wait a minute, we ain't voted yet. So we're doing that on Monday night. But again, I think we're just putting our money where our mouth is. So I don't know, Chairman Inslee.
And then, Trevor, how many positions would you have to cut to get to is it okay to ask that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll answer it. So, in looking at a $2 million gap, and there was lots, again, I just named a few of the factors. Our fixed costs are up, the unfunded mandate.
Well, you still got to take care of the same square footage. That's not going away. But
that's correct.
Yeah.
Buses still have to run. If you got one kid on the bus or if you got 30. So.
That's correct. That's correct. And, there are other raises that have been given to certified employees like teachers and other things that don't exactly correlate to that ADM number that we're given in funding. They don't always, they hit an average on that. And so we have a lot of nationally board certified teachers, which is why our kids do so well. We're very fortunate to have a disproportional number of nationally board certified teachers, and they're paid for having that certification. And so when they calculate a formula of funding by pupil or ADM, then they're hitting an average. They're figuring it on a teacher who would fall somewhere in the middle, and ours are falling higher on the scale. And so even with those pay raises, we're slipping there as well as far as the available funding for our schools. So it's about a $2 million gap, and scale of economy for every $1 million, you're looking at about 15 middle of the road teachers. But as I pointed out, ours are nationally board certified, and so that would be looking at 30 teachers.
And then on the class sizes, maybe explain that too.
And so we are also working the state side of this because I'd like to point out that y'all haven't reduced our funding. You've increased our funding, possibly or hopefully, while the state has reduced that and created unfunded mandates. They've also enacted class size requirements. I'll use one as an example. First grade classrooms cannot have more than 19 students in it. At some of our smaller schools, that's a challenge, because if 20 kids walk into one of our smaller schools, there's 20 total kids for first grade, to meet the letter of the law or the class size requirement in first grade, we would have to send 2 teachers, which means then you've got 2 classrooms of 10 kids, which is great for those kids, but it hits our budget in a really negative way. And it does not allow our teaching force to go as fully as it possibly could. And so, and they have those requirements K through 2. And they keep changing them, and that makes it harder to make our dollar maximize in spending. And what we spend on are our teachers and our staff, because it's worked very well for many, many years, and that investment in our staff and our people has served our children well. And so I don't know why you would change that. And so we're doing everything we can not to change that.
Commissioner Rogers said this is an issue that's being discussed across the state, and we are an aging population. The baby boom bubble is showing on those graphs in nearly every county. It's just a matter of fact. After post-World War II, the families boomed, and now we're seeing our birth rate 1.9 or below, where we need to maintain a 2.1 to keep our current population in this country. So those numbers are working against us, but you can see these trends coming. I know if this passes, it'll give you some time to make a plan, a better plan, and do as you described. And I've said that phrase, land softly, and I know you've got a hold harmless request in to buy some time. But I've always said the school board members, the elected school board members, they have a tough job. They have as tough a job as any elected official in Haywood County during these times, because you're dealing with inflation, unfunded mandates, a declining enrollment, and there's, I hate to say it, but I mean, we're all going to earn our money, earn our keep, and there's going to have to be some tough decisions made moving forward, as you well know, and so these are trying times, and it calls for some tough decisions. But to your statement about your nationally board certified teachers, to credit to Haywood County, I think y'all are 7th in the whole state as far as our test scores back with our students. 7th in the whole state of North Carolina, and that's a direct reflection upon those very qualified personnel that you have teaching our children. And I think all of us up here are probably products of the public school system, and I'm a huge supporter. My children went through the public school system, and so. But having said all that, there are some tough decisions in the days ahead, based on demographics, based on real data. So I know you're fully aware of that.
Yes, sir.
I've talked to several of the commissioners about this over the past week, and I don't think you sing your praises loud enough that we're 7th. Our Haywood County schools are 7th out of 115 districts. And that's really important, particularly in this time that we're in Haywood County, because as people choose to live here or to not live here, as businesses choose to rebuild or build here, schools is really high on the list of things that new opportunities look for. We need we need housing, and we need available workforce, and we need good education for our schools. Commissioner Long has touched on the fact that you are tasked with a big responsibility in the next few years to right this ship, and we have great confidence that as partners we'll be able to do that. But I do believe that education is just absolutely a cornerstone in our community, and it's something that we definitely need to make sure that the kids and the teachers and the staff is taken care of, and I think you're doing a good job. And we trust you and the school board to get it straightened up. And then, not that it's bad now, but you've got some big responsibilities and some things that are going to happen. So we trust you to do that going forward.
Has anybody got any questions?
Robert, would this help when level it out now until help to where these teachers can gradually retire out the extra teachers that you're going to have to get rid of and stuff? Will that help level it out for a while now and make that work, and maybe help some with the the number of students or something? Will they be used for that purpose and stuff?
So these provisions and these adjustments are made without knowing fully what the mill closure will, how it'll impact us. So additionally, we're working, I've put some draft bill language to our local legislators for their consideration. In that local bill language, one of the things I've asked for is a hold harmless. And so basically what I'm asking them to do is, would you please fund us the way you did this past year till we can realize how small we need to go, or how big, you know,
Right.
Who knows, up or down. We don't know which way that's going. And I've heard all of you talk about that it sounds like a lot of folks are going to stay, and I certainly hope they do, because we want their kids and we want them. I think that's what makes our community so special and unique. But that said, I can't bank on that. I can't build a budget off that. I have to be prepared to pivot and move and downsize if we need to. And so I've asked for that hold harmless provision from our local legislators. I can tell you also in that local bill language, I've asked for class size flexibility so that when we hit overages like I described in our smaller schools, where we have 19 kids and we can only have 19 kids in a classroom and 20 show up, that we might be able to forego that, because I feel very confident in our highly qualified teachers that an additional kid in a classroom will be no problem for them. So that's the second tenet of the local bill. And the third and final tenet is some financial flexibility. We receive lots of different pots of money, but it's earmarked and it's pretty stringent. And so being able to use it within its legal limits, but to be able to move in and out of the different funding sources so that we can maximize the money we have available to us. And so this measure on the part of all of you is critical to the success, and I think the state has a part that's going to be critical. But really all it's doing, cuts are coming. Okay, I don't want anybody to be disillusioned that there are no cuts, that the cuts are coming. This money will allow us over the biennium, the next couple of years, to evaluate rather than just say, well, we had 4 retire, we're cutting those 4. That may or may not be the best decision. It gives us a chance to evaluate other things that we pay for that we might rather lose than just taking the first 4 that retire or resign. So we just want to be able to do it in a smart way. And this gives us that time.
And I will say the funding formula has been a really a blessing for the county. I know before 2004, 2003, every time budget season, this room would be full of school personnel because the commissioners, they were arguing over what the schools were supposed to get. So now you guys have the 3.25%. You know what you're going to get every year, and you're able to budget with that without having to come before us every year, you know, going back and forth. That way you have numbers that you can budget with. So we implemented this in 2004 maybe, or 2003, and it's really served us well. I was telling Jennifer, and I maybe I've said this before, we were at a meeting with other county commissioners, and there was a county commissioner there from Fayetteville that said that they had started doing the funding formula. And so I remember Mark Swanger and a couple of others were there, and Mark used to be the school board chair, and he used to do that, you know. I mean, he's been on both sides. And so we started doing that, and it's worked so well during those times. I mean, well, for 20 years, it's worked really well. And so I'm glad that Bryant and our staff, and I know Brandon and I met with y'all, and when we first met, it was, you know, our eyes were really big because, you know, of what your issues were. And Dr. Nolte was there at that time, and he told us that it was coming, you know, that what he was going to have to be dealing with. And of course, he's retired, and you got the mantle there, and we appreciate you. But it's just, you know, so I'm glad that you all have put a pencil to it, worked together, to try to figure out the best way to get there, because we were looking at trying to come up, this is like 3 cents on the tax rate, I think. So, 2 or 3 cents. So, but y'all have worked this out really well, and I appreciate it. I know it's took a lot of work.
I asked him to arm wrestle and he wouldn't. I wanted to arm wrestle for it.
Hey, he's getting in shape. You might.
I know, yeah.
Might take better be careful what you ask for.
Dr. Putnam, one final question. Do you have a percentage of the staff that is at or near retirement age based on age or years of service?
I don't have that, but I could certainly get that for you.
Not necessarily that they would, that you would push them to do so, but just curious the age, I guess, of the staff and tenure.
What I can tell you, our natural attrition is about 40 to 60 staff members per year, somewhere in that range, either through resignation or retirement, relocation. But that doesn't, you say, well, that's easy, just take the natural attrition for this year. But what inevitably happens is they retire in 8th grade science. Well, we have to teach 8th grade science. I can't, so we have to put a position back. So you go, well, there's one less that we can, use in resolving the budget. And that happens more often than not.
Sure it does,
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
It's hard to find certified teachers sometimes when you need it for a particular subject, but you got to have them.
And especially in the high schools, elementary licensing is typically K through 5, and so you're good there, lose one, gain one. Not that their craft is not highly specialized, it's just their degree covers a larger number of subjects and areas and grades. But in the high school, it gets particularly hard, and middle school's a little harder, but high school's the most difficult because you're looking for an English language arts or an English instructor, and that is the only certification.
Foreign language and
foreign language,
biology,
math,
trigonometry. Yuck.
The list goes on and on.
So this is a per pupil allocation. If your attendance fluctuates, it'll track it. So if your ADM goes down, that'll be less impact on our budget, or if it goes up, we're committed to fund it.
It is reactive to the number of students we have.
One thing I'll add too is this is not something that we just decided on last week. As you mentioned earlier, we've been in numerous meetings with you guys and our staff and spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. And I think we've come to the best solution, and appreciate the time that we did get to spend together, but it's something that we've been working on for a long time. So just wanted the public to be aware of that. A lot of times I think they think that we get this stuff presented to us and it's the first time we've heard it, but we've been talking about it, like you said, since Dr. Nolde was here. So I've been working on it for some time.
How many nationally certified teachers do you have?
I don't have that number with me either, but.
Or is it maybe most of them, half of them?
I think we are nationally ranked based on the percentage of nationally board certified teachers that we have. Nationally ranked, not state, nationally. Way up there. And so, proof's in the pudding. We've got some really good teachers, and on top of that, they have a drive to be better for their students, and they've went back and they've sought this nationally board certified program and endured it, and it's a pretty lengthy, ornate, exhausting process over a year or two, and they've done that for our kids. And so, it's all the credit belongs with them and the folks that get them to school on time, and the folks who make sure they got something nice and hot to eat and clean the restroom. Just so many people doing so many good things. And so that's why I hate that cuts result in people. But that's where we spend our money, is on people. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But we're going to look at other things. This 3.25, if y'all were to approve that, it gives us time to look at other things. We have a substitute service that we use that we had to have in the pandemic, so we could get bodies in the classrooms to cover when our teachers were sick. We're going to evaluate that. We're going to look at our device replacement cycle. There are other things we're going to look at, but unfortunately, the bulk of our spending's on people.
I hope the state takes your recommendation. During this time we live in, they should be flexible and especially allow more leverage for your group to decide how to spend the money. And as it, things are collapsing or expanding, there needs to be some flexibility available for you guys. So I hope the state legislatures, they take a look at that and see where you're coming from.
And I heard a gentleman mention fund balance. It's currently resting at about 1.7 million, which is nerve-wracking for a budget as large as ours. That wouldn't even pay our county supplement if we had to pay it. So hopefully we can make enough cuts that can at least sustain itself or build a little bit if possible.
Yeah. Well, let me clear that up. I want to make a public statement here. I have never recommended to the school board that you spend your money. There was some misconceptions. I think it even got printed one time that the county commissioners implored the school board to spend down their fund balance. I've never done that. And I don't know where it didn't come during my tenure. I would never recommend you to spend down your rainy day fund. I'm big on a good, strong rainy day fund and being prepared and so you can pivot and move and be flexible. So I commend the school board for being conservative and hopefully build that back up. I don't know where that came from. It's sometimes miscommunication that was attributed to me. I've never done that. I don't know that anybody here has. I think it stemmed from years ago, and it bled over to today's economy. So I do want to clear that up. When I first heard that, I thought, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
When have we ever told anybody to spend down their fund balance? I've never done that.
I was a little bit in the minority. I was a little bit in the minority when they were recommending that, but you got to have three.
New guy in the room since November. Okay, it wasn't me. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what was said, but I'm going to fix it. All right?
Yeah. Build that fund balance. You're going to need it. Be conservative when you spend.
Yeah, I can remember they told you to spend it down. And you did.
It's going to rain one day.
right.
And you're going to need a rainy day fund. It's raining now.
Okay. Is that okay? Everybody done? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your show.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 4.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, then next we'll move to the request approval of a grant agreement with Haywood County Schools for disbursement of a one-time funding grant in the amount of $300,000 and associated budget amendments for those funds. Hey, Christian.
Yes, these next two items go right along with the school funding formula. What we have done is we have taken $300,000 from our American Rescue Plan funds, and we have given that, or potentially are going to give that as a one-time grant to the school system to, help them with their funding shortage. One very important thing is this grant is exclusive of the fund balance. It is not going to be factored into any future funding formula. But yeah, we're using the American Rescue Funds to help them out with a one-time grant for $300,000.
And just to be clear, they qualified for this one-time grant because of distance learning, and is that correct?
The initial criteria from the U.S. Treasury was for the school system to help with distance learning and any effects of the pandemic. The reduction in student population could be considered a effect of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And we were able, initially, these funds that we were going to grant to the school system were going to come with a massive amount of strings and reporting. And we found a way to cycle them through what the U.S. Treasury calls revenue replacement so that we can give these funds to the school and they can use them for operating. They don't have to do this extensive reporting, and we don't have to do the very extensive monitoring of them.
We're also sitting on a million.
Make a motion, we approve item number 5 on the regular agenda.
Thank you, Tommy.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for school board, too. We appreciate all they do. Because Tommy is right, that is the,
Next one, 6.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, yeah. Request approval of a grant agreement with Haywood County Schools for disbursement of a previously approved American Rescue Grant, or ARPA funds, in the amount of $500,000 in a budget amendment to reappropriate funds that were approved in fiscal year '22 and not dispersed.
Yes, this is the initial appropriation we made to the school system using the American Rescue Plan funds. This was the funding that had an extensive amount of strings attached to it for both the school system and for the county. Like I had just mentioned, we found a way kind of around those, and we didn't get to disperse those funds last year that were already approved because of those strings. So this just appropriates those monies from fund balance so we can get them to the school system.
Okay. Do you have any questions about that?
This is, it was already approved in 22, so everybody will know, right?
Yes, that is correct. It was approved in fiscal year 2022.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 6 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
I second.
Oh, okay. Any other discussion? Somebody's going to sleep. Yeah. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
So Trevor, now you can go.
I just want to say thank y'all very, very much on behalf of our kids and our staff. Thank y'all.
You may want to stay up and support the agriculture teachers down at Pisgah High School.
That's right.
They've got the next item on the agenda.
They're working hard.
They've been patiently waiting for several hours.
I'll stay right by.
Right, next is item number 7, request approval of budget amendment for public schools, $25,000 to appropriate contingency funds to assist Pisgah High Schools with the construction of a barn for their agricultural program. We have the Pisgah horticultural teacher, Courtney Smith, here. And Courtney, who's with you?
Actually, that's the horticulture teacher. This is Joshua Justice. He's the horticulture teacher. I'm Courtney Smith. I'm the animal science teacher.
Okay.
So we both come to you to present this because at Pisgah, we do not see our program as horticulture and animal science. We are the ag department. We work together on, well, everything. The students who would be utilizing the barn that we're proposing could be in animal science, they could be in horticulture. It really doesn't matter to us. We view this as a total program. So that's what we're here for today.
So about our program, we are a 2-teacher program. Like she said earlier, I teach the horticulture, she's the animal science teacher. As a total, we teach 6 courses, ranging from an entry level all the way to advanced courses with a sprinkling of internships with big companies and small companies. We've got a lot going on with our courses. We do have 2 greenhouses. We were able to secure our 2nd greenhouse in 2017 through some grant funding. We are a nationally ranked program. Over the last 5 years, we have, through the FFA, been the highest ranking school, or the highest ranking that you can get within a chapter. We have received that ranking the last 4 or 5 years. Previously, we were this close to that. But we have been together for about 10 years. We've worked really hard with our program. We've had multiple state and national winning events. And currently, we have roughly 230 students that come through our program.
So the vision and the mission for our program is very well aligned with National FFA and North Carolina FFA. So our vision is growing leaders, building communities, and strengthening agriculture. And we've heard a lot sitting here tonight about the need for leaders for our future, the need to build our community, especially the Canton community, in light of some of the things that have been happening in our community. We're losing our biggest employer. We have a lot of kids who maybe had thought, I'm going to go to work at the mill one day, and now that's off the table. So we've got to provide them some opportunities to have a career after they graduate high school. And then also strengthening agriculture. Agriculture is a very strong part of this county, and having a facility where we can teach kids industry standards and that we can focus on the skills that they need to be a leader in agriculture or just to go on in their daily lives, that's very important to us. So we follow the FFA mission, which is to make a positive difference in the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through ag ed. We really stand by that mission, and we really work to promote our program and to promote skills to these young people that they're going to need in their futures. So what we're really coming for is that we're proposing to build a new barn. If you have been to our facility or been by our facility on the backside next to the baseball field, you have seen our barn. It's right there by the road. It is a 26 by 48 foot barn. It came from Farm Tech, and it is a metal frame structure with a poly covering. Those poly coverings have a lifespan of about 15 years. If you take a look at those pictures, the picture there on the left, every rib where it meets the top, you can see daylight through the top of the barn. It is in disrepair. It needs to be replaced, not only because that structure is, it's lived its life, but also because space-wise, we are not able to meet the requirements of our students. We can house 10 sheep and goats in our barn right now. We cannot house cattle in that particular barn, and we cannot easily house swine, and we have both of those things on our farm. So we need a facility that will allow us to be able to house all the animals and to grow. Our student population is growing. My classes and Josh's classes are full to bursting every semester. We've got kids who are dying to get into these ag classes, and they want to be more and more involved. And with our current space, we can't get them the hands-on experience that they need. We need a larger space.
Now, with the facility that we have now, we've got a 7-acre farm, or roughly a 7-acre farm, and we use every inch of that property, including the barn. 3 years ago, we started a blackberry patch and a blueberry patch. This year, we should be hopefully harvesting our first crop off that. We established an apple orchard through 2 students who wanted their Eagle Scout. So these 2 young men put us in an apple orchard. And the goal for that is to work with our culinary arts teacher to make jams, jellies, preserves, or whatever she wants to do with it. We've got 30 sheep. We've got 5 goats. We've got pigs. Currently, we've got 6 pigs. We just had piglets last week. We've got stuff going on all the time. We use the facility for kindergarten days. It's a 2-day event. Every kindergartner that possibly will come to Pisgah High School spends a half a day with us. We do little activities with them. They go home with a treat bag. It's every year those kindergarten teachers are busting our door. Hey, when is it? When can I sign up? We use it for soil labs, weed labs, tree identification, livestock evaluation, lots of competitive events. We have a livestock show team that has grown steadily since our first year of starting it. We ask for 4-H and other county entities to come in for enrichment. So we use this facility year-round. It is not something that we just sit on a shelf. We truly value what we have and try to use it to the best of our ability.
You skipped this one, but we actually just got some honeybees this past week. So we got some grant funding through the General Assembly to start a beehive at our school. So we've started that. We're all the time evolving and doing new things with our facility. So what we're proposing is a new barn. Total footprint of 56 by 60 with red iron truss system. We've gotten some quotes from R&R Ironworks to purchase this barn. The main structure would be 40 by 60. It would have 9 stalls. It would have a restroom, which is really important because we don't have one of those right now. Feed, tack, and medicine storage, and then also having the option for more temporary stalling space in the hallway of the barn to maximize our space during our busy times, during our show seasons. The outer leans, one side would be used for equipment storage, the other side would be for a wash rack and a clipping area for our livestock that would be permanent with good drainage, good lighting, so that we would be able to present those animals for those students in the best of their abilities.
So some of the strengths that we have within our program, one is we have the student interest. We've got students who want to be a part of our classes. Yes, we know that our ADM within the whole system is down, but as far as our program goes, we have students who are interested in agriculture. They want to be there. We have a large and dedicated livestock show team. Like I said, we started that 6 years ago, 7 years ago? 9 years ago. We started with 3 people. Now we're averaging 12 to 15 students who want to be a part of that team. And we just don't have the space for them. But we've got that interest, we've got that growth. We have a really supportive community. There are several farmers in our area that I can call up and say, hey, can I come look at your facilities, your cattle, your sheep, your pigs, whatever. Can I bring my kids out there and look at what you have? And they never turn me down. It's always a yes, or can you wait till it's not raining? We have the support. We've got people in the community that want to see us continue to grow. We also have the building and ground support for this. We went back in September, and they approved for us to go ahead and move forward with this endeavor. Some of the weaknesses. Our facility is very limited. We don't have restrooms. What we've got is coming apart the seam. We hope we don't have another bad windstorm because we may not have a roof on what we've got currently. We have limited accessibility. We've got special needs students who want to be a part of our classes. They're able to go to the greenhouses. They're able to do some of those things, but if they get down to the farm and they need a restroom or they need to be taken off and handled with some of their needs, we have nowhere for them to go. We have nowhere for them to use the restroom. Our students, we make them go before we get down the farm. Sometimes they have to hit the bushes. It's just, that's the fact of the matter.
Kindergarten days. Kindergartners are the worst. They tell them, go before. Last week when we had kindergartners, or 2 weeks ago when we had kindergartners there were a few who had hit the barn because, we just don't have those facilities, and that is a major limitation for our farm.
One of the other things that's kind of a weakness is what we currently have, even though we're growing, it's doing all these great things, we are not aligned with industry. One of the biggest things with us being CTE is we want to align ourselves with the industry so that when students are going into the ag field or whatever field it is, they're not coming out at a disadvantage. We want those students to go into these career paths knowing what to expect, or at least having some hands-on experience. And right now, what we currently have as a facility does not plan for their future. It doesn't give them those hands-on skill set that they need going into that career.
Some opportunities with a new facility is that we could house more animals of a larger variety, so we could house those pigs, those cattle much easier. We could also offer some educational workshops, both to our students but also to the community. Several years ago, we brought in a world-renowned livestock groomer to do a clinic, and we couldn't have that at our school farm. We had to rent a facility to be able to have him come in. So having this facility would allow us to host some of these events there. It would be a multi-use facility. Some days it's just going to be a barn. Some days there's just going to be livestock animals there. Some days it'll be a lab. Some days it'll be a classroom. It's going to be useful in all aspects of our curriculum. We also know that it is very, very pushed through the school system to prepare these kids college and career ready. Having this updated facility is going to allow us to provide them some hard skills that are going to make them college and career ready, whether they focus on an agricultural career or something entirely different. This is also going to allow us to increase our student participation because we have more space. We can get more kids in there, more hands-on, and have them working on various projects at the farm. And it will also allow for some cross-curricular exposure, so bringing some of those foods classes or some of those other courses from the school, even your core classes, bringing down the math classes, bringing down the science courses, and letting them experience some of the things on our farm that can enrich their education as well. And then lastly, there's threats. I had talked with Commissioner Best before we came to this meeting, and she said somebody's probably going to ask this question. So we're going to go ahead and address it here, is that there is the possibility that we could lose the current property that we are on. It is on a 10-year lease through the school system, and that lease is up for renewal in 2026, and they will begin renegotiations in October of next year, of 2024. So we are aware of that threat. We know that it's a possibility, but the farm has been there for 20 years. It's been renegotiated twice. at this point. And so we are aware that that is a possibility, and there are some thoughts and plans in the backs of our minds if that is something that does happen, if that contract does not get renegotiated. So as far as our timeline, what we have been doing and what we are planning to do, starting in 2022, in spring of 2022, we began doing some research on what type of facility we would like, what we would need. And then in September of 2022, we visited Building and Grounds meeting, and they approved us to move forward with our fundraising, which we have since done. So we began our fundraising this year. To date, we have gotten $15,000 from an outdoor lab grant, $10,000 from our program funding from greenhouse sales, and from meat sales. We have our meat handler's license and are able to sell meat that is raised on our farm. And Haywood County Farm Bureau has pledged their support through this year's budget. We do know that that lease is going to be renegotiated, and if it is not renegotiated, we do have the support of school administration and of the school board to help us relocate our facilities.
So some of the goals for this facility or this barn, one is the educational side of it. I want you to know up front that we don't ever plan on being a production farm. It's 7 acres. There's only so much you can do with 7 acres. But we can take that facility and we can introduce our kids to a vast array of things. We can expound upon the number of animals that we have for our show team. A lot of our animals are borrowed from those farmers that I talked about earlier. Mr. Sarles and some of the others that are calling us now asking when we're coming and picking out calves. But we can have a place to house these animals. We keep them from June through October. The farmer, we get a great relationship with these guys. They get a broke animal that is fat and happy, and by us having this facility, it allows us to grow and have more animals. It allows us to have more students involved in that. It also provides us with the ability to align ourselves more with industry standards, so that handling of those animals, safe care, proper nutrition, proper growth, all those things that we need to do to ensure that those kids understand what the industry demands are. We would love to host clinics. We want to be known in the West region as the school that shows animals. We're already kind of known as that, but we want to really be known as that school that shows animals and does a very good job. We want to be able to host clinics so that other schools, 4-H groups, other members of the community can come in, use our facilities to help better their education, and just simply to allow our students the opportunity for leadership roles. Some of our senior showmen can host clinics or do workshops to teach the younger ones, and that just builds up their confidence and also builds their skill set when they enter that show ring. We also want to utilize some technology. Now, I say technology, it's not new, it's been around, but we would love to have like baby cams and other things so that when it's lambing season or farrowing season, we can have cameras down there so that the whole school knows what's going on. They can see those lambs being born or those piglets being born. Our kids get excited about it, teachers get excited about it, they want to go down and see it, but we don't really have that right now. Furthermore, if we had that capability, we could throw it up on a screen in our classroom and watch those animals. Leave them alone. If they need us, we can go down there really quick, but it provides a space for the animal to have a restful stint from their labors. It also would give us the opportunity to provide our students with the best chance of their future career. If we have a facility that's state-of-the-art, then when they go into that career, they're not behind, like I said earlier.
So we just want to thank the community, thank the parents, and thank our alumni for their support of our program. Without our students, without their hard work, and without the support that we have received, we wouldn't have the program that we do. Our program is very successful, but as it continues to grow, we have to continue to grow. And so that is really the reason why we need that new facility. If we plan to keep growing at the same scale that we have been growing, it's definitely something that is necessary. So y'all have any questions for us? No.
No.
Well, I mean, where are your other funds going to come from? I know the cost of buildings. That's just a.
We have a quote for the structure with the funding that we have already secured that will just about cover the structure, but that's only the structure, not installing the structure, plumbing, electrical, any of that. So we have some other sources that we are exploring to try to, talk to and see about getting some grant funding. It has been a little bit difficult for us because we can't utilize things like W&C Communities because of the way that Tuscola's farm grant was written as a multi-use facility for multiple counties. That knocks us out of being able to get some funding. So we've got a couple other places that we're trying to secure some more funding from.
And it also kind of hit us at the bad timing, I guess is the best way to put it. Several of the grants cycling, when we started, getting in that writing mode, their cycles was about to end or had just recently ended. So we're kind of having to wait till they open back up their cycles for us to apply for some things that, that we want to apply for.
It's hard to say, if you could buy that for 25 grand, I'd like to talk to you after the meeting. I might be interested if they give us a 2-for-1, a discount for 2, but.
I appreciate y'all putting so much work into the presentation. You answered a lot of questions, and it was a very thorough report.
Yeah, I can tell both of them's teachers, they had my attention the whole time. So I appreciate y'all putting together such a thorough presentation. I mean, it did answer all the questions that I was thinking of as it come up. I did have a question some time ago. I know when Tuscola come to us asking about something similar, I said, well, where's Pisgah? Well, here you are, so we appreciate
And that
you
was
guys.
something we talked about today, is that our decision to look into building a new barn did not come after Tuscola proposed their barn. This is something we've been seeing coming for quite some time, knowing that the life of that barn that was built there is only about 15 years before it's going to have to be recovered. That's been in the back of our minds for some time.
Yeah.
We've been there for 10 years. This is our 10th year at Pisgah together. So we've been looking at that for quite some time. It hadn't come to fruition until that point. We had some hurdles we had to cross and some approvals that we had to get beforehand. And once we got those approvals, then we were able to move forward and be here to ask for some funding.
It's no problem at all. I support both schools, but it's fun to, another commissioner, and of course, our chairman, he's from the other side there. We try not to hold against him, so we have a little fun with it, but no joke, we support both schools. And especially
Tuscola
with
was
something
number
like
one in
this.
shooting, by the way, in the district.
Yeah, I heard that earlier.
This time.
Hey, that's right.
You got full backing from the school board and the boss back there.
We've been working very closely with Mr. Haynes, the assistant superintendent. He's been in contact with us several times, back and forth about some issues and some concerns, things back and forth. Dr. Putnam was in the Building and Grounds Committee meeting when we went originally to receive the approval to go forward with fundraising. So we've been in contact with the right folks to try to make sure that we do these things the right way, especially knowing that we are on leased property. So we're trying to make sure that we cross all our T's and dot all our I's before we move forward with building any structures.
And where's your facility located, just for the people at home?
So we're located on the backside on 215 there, just before the baseball field for Pisgah, just past filter plant.
Okay, very good.
I appreciate what y'all do too. I've got a niece that was just in there. I've got a niece that she was showing cattle with y'all. Deanna.
Yeah. We love Deanna. We have had some of the best kids on that livestock show team. Jennifer's son was on that team for all 4 years. We had Chance, we drug him all over the place.
I was on that team.
Well, she was on that team too. We drug her along with us to all the different shows and all the different places. And it really is a valuable program, not just from the livestock show team standpoint, but all the aspects of our ag program are very, very valuable to students. And sometimes they don't see that. They get kind of their blinders on with the college path, and I've got to go take all these classes, and I've got to get ready to go to college, and they forget that they need to learn some of these hard skills that we can offer, not just through the ag programs, but also just through CTE in general. And when they do get into those classes, sometimes we don't get them till their senior year. They don't get a chance to take those classes till they get to be a senior. Then they get into those classes, and they're like, man, I wish I'd have started this when I was a freshman. This is great. So it really is valuable, and we just want to make sure sure that everyone sees the value and that we can have a facility that will show that value and that we can utilize for the community to come in and visit and see what we're doing and show them what these kids can do for their futures.
How many students do you have that have a farming history versus those that may have come in kindergarten and said,
So
hey,
you're asking how many of our students come from an agricultural background?
Right.
I would say 10%.
Really?
I would say probably less.
Yeah.
So the
That's
reason I say that is Dr. Putnam talked about, those nationally board certified teachers. We're both in a renewal cycle this year on national boards. And I did a demographic survey just a couple weeks ago with one of my classes. And one of my questions was, do you come from a farming background? And I think out of a class of 20, I had one student who came from a farm background. They may have had experience with a family member's farm or, we have a couple chickens, but from a true farm background, it is very, very few.
But the skills that they learn through our program they apply in so many different aspects. We've got a student currently right now who is a junior at UMO. He did internship with the assistant to Steve Troxler, and he come from, well, bless his heart, he didn't know what the end of a rope was when he first came to our program, but he wanted to be on our show team. We strapped him to a calf, and well, we watched him get, bounced across the field a few times. But, when we see that, we see more and more students going into the ag industry. Yeah, they don't have that farming background, but they really like that greenhouse. They go work for Metrolina. I really like being in animal science. Let me internship with the vet's office. So we see a lot of kids, even though they're not coming from the ag background, they're going into those supportive roles for agriculture.
That's great. I know I've dabbled in chickens and goats and stuff like that in the past. Matter of fact, I just ordered my first set of honeybees. So I'm 51 years old and just getting into it. So it's good to see that kids are interested in that, even though they don't have that farming history or farming or ag background. And I think it's important.
10%. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and it teaches you how to work. I mean, I had to milk a cow before I went to school every morning. So it was, and then on Saturdays, you didn't get to go play. It was.
That's the reason why my boys didn't go through the FFA program. Like, no, we do it all day on Saturday and every evening. So.
But no, I'm glad I had it, though. I'm glad I did it. I mean, I'm glad that I was raised that way.
Let me say while your boss is here tonight, what people don't see, I served on the Fairgrounds Committee for 4 years, and Courtney and Josh helped plan the county fair. And they put hours and hours coming to fair meetings, pre-planning meetings, and then they do the Pisgah FFA does a livestock show in conjunction with the Haywood County Cattlemen's Association and all the other things that y'all do, and do crowd control sometimes, and just jump in there and help on everything. But the Haywood County Fair would not work without these two folks right here.
That's true. That's
It
true.
would
We
not
appreciate
work.
you for that. Yeah.
And they just put a tremendous amount of voluntary time in helping with the county fair. And I know Commissioner Ramey will experience that this go around. So appreciate that too.
Let me go ahead and approve item 7.
I'll make that motion to approve item 7.
I second.
They beat you, Jennifer.
Sorry, Jennifer.
Jennifer brought this before us, though, okay? We'll give her credit. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, you want to oppose? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
good
guys
luck
very
on
much.
on raising the rest of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. If somebody wants to donate, Courtney, what do they do? Just donate to the schools? Now that I'm thinking about it, there may be some folks out there that want to donate to me.
We have a designated, like a sub-account through the school.
Okay.
Our bookkeeper has set up a designated earmarked account for any
Okay.
funding that is set aside for the barn. So, I mean, if anyone would like to donate to that, they could donate through the school to that special earmarked
And
account.
just earmark what your check's for. Okay, great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. You're welcome. Okay, item 8 is to request approval of a grant agreement with Haywood Community College for disbursement of previously approved American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, funds in the amount of $500,000 in the budget amendment to reappropriate funds that were approved in fiscal year '22 and not dispersed. You're up again, Christian.
Hello again. This is the community college side of the ARPA disbursement.
Okay.
Same thing as before. We approved it in FY22, had lots of strings. We reworked it, and now we're going to send it to them. We just need to reappropriate those funds.
Make a motion, we approve item number 8.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Christian. Item number 9 is to request approval of budget amendment, Public Safety Sheriff's Department, $34,000 to appropriate contingency funds to cover repairs and maintenance on vehicles for the remainder of the fiscal year in the amount of $24,000 and to cover $10,000 in additional uniforms for the remainder of the fiscal year. Chief Deputy Matthew Grantham. How are you doing, Matthew?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
You've hung around.
I did, yeah.
Appreciate you.
They've been cracking jokes on us as they've all left, but it's okay. So,
We saved the best for last.
That's right.
that's the way you want to look at it. This is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't get drug out with this, but we had spoke to Chris quite a bit about this. We just had some unexpected issues with some vehicles. We've had to replace a motor, a transmission, another one. We've got 3 sitting there, so we're just low on funds to get those fixed with very few to
We've got to
replace
keep you
them.
on the road. So.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions for Matthew? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 9 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
In this discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Matthew.
You're free to go.
Okay, item 10 is actually item 6 of the consent agenda, which is to request approval of a budget amendment for the library, $9,000, to appropriate additional ABC revenues received to be used for purchasing additional digital books, audiobooks, and printed materials.
Save the best for last.
Yeah.
Ms. Foster.
So you've kind of explained it, Kathy.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Did you have another thought? Okay.
No, I was just going to let you know, I gave you some numbers, but just comparing this year, March of 2023, our fiscal year to date, with last year, we've already circulated 26,000 more print materials, and we've circulated 5,000 more digital books over last year. So we're just doing really well at the library, and people seem to really like what we're providing to them.
And a lot of people use the library that we don't realize.
They do.
It's a really a kind of a, that's what they do.
Yeah, so if we could have these additional funds to purchase some additional items, it would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 10, which is item 6 of the consent agenda.
I'm making a motion, we approve item 10.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Kathy.
you so much.
Thanks for hanging around.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We could have made you like item A of whatever item you started on.
That's what I should have done.
I started to do it. I started to say 1A. instead
I
of-
did. That's on me. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, and I also want to mention something that I forgot earlier. Mr. Zeb Smathers is going to be our hometown hero at our Storytime Hometown Heroes tomorrow at 11 o'clock at the Canton Branch. So if anyone would like to come out and find out more about his job, and he's going to read a story and interact with the kiddos, it's at 11 tomorrow.
How do you get on that reading list if you want to be a reader? How do you get on that?
Would you like to do that? We can recommend you.
Okay. I would entertain that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some of these other folks might want to do that, so I don't know.
So just contact you if they want
He's
to
going
do
to
it.
put me on the list.
I'll
I
have
can see.
Jennifer Stewart or Ashlyn Godleski give you a call.
Okay.
All
thank
right. Thank you.
There you go, Tommy. Okay, next order of business is appointments. We do not have any appointments tonight, but we do have a closed session. The closed session is attorney-client privilege in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, and this is a case of Doyle Sutton versus Haywood County. I entertain a motion. We go to that closed session.
I make a motion we go in closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we'll be in closed session when we enter chambers in the back. Okay, we're back from closed session. Does anybody have any other business to bring before the board?
No, I do have one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I figured you would.
I know we have a huge audience here to listen, but there are people watching online. And in all seriousness, we've had a very great accomplishment by one of our board members. Commissioner Best got elected as second vice president to the Southwest Commission at our last meeting.
Vice chair. Second vice chair.
Second vice chair. Thanks for the correction, but our Southwestern Commission is a council of government group. She was duly nominated and elected by that group from Murphy to Haywood County, and it's an honor for her to be in that position. And it's also an honor to have our board members on the Metropolitan, what is that?
Transportation Board. We actually have 2 members on that.
Yeah.
And I will say, we've had, so Jennifer, I don't think I've ever served with a commissioner that had that title. And then we've had 2 members on the MPO board. I don't think we ever had that. And then we've got, Tommy, you're on the
district director for District 17 in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners.
That's right. And you
voted in by my peers, so that's
and you were down at
Newbern
doing that this, what was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? So you took time out of your schedule to do that, and I know the mill's shorthanded, so we appreciate that. And the other thing you were on was that Cherokee
Preservation Board, correct.
Preservation Board, and we've never had anybody serve on that, so anyway, I just want to mention that, and stuff. So.
Busy.
Yeah, and that's beyond the board, the 29 boards that we all have to serve on that we've got now, so anyway, I appreciate that. Okay.
I know Commissioner Ramey's doing a good job on the Fairgrounds Board. That's a very good board for the county. It brings in a lot of revenue and has great events to enhance our population, so.
Yeah, I worked on that board for 14 years, and that was a very busy board. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Everybody, I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned, thank you.